Are
But
you actually,
you'd be
look, just
very
to clear
wrong
up,
about that.
one of the many theories about you, I've no idea what the answer is and you haven't got to answer. But are you actually attracted to women?
I am attracted to women.
You're not gay?
No. But I will say that women are very difficult to be around.
Okay.
So there's that.
And do you think they should have the right to vote?
I do not. No, absolutely not.
They should stay at home?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
See, basically, you're just a misogynist old dinosaur, aren't you? For a young guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm the boomer. I know I'm the boomer here, but actually, you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you? Aren't you, Nick Fuentes? All women.
I am.
All women are annoying. All women grow
fossil.
old. They all get fat. Says the guy. Have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely not.
Wow. Says the guy who's never got laid. Wow.
That's the thing, though. You boomers, it's
Do you think
always
you're an
get
expert
laid,
in women,
free love.
given you've never got laid?
Yeah, we are going back to the Stone Age. You're absolutely right. This.
Sitch picked the cold open, so
I saw everyone on X. The clip. This was the clip that everyone was throwing out there. Are you gay, Nick? Nick, there's a lot of people out here that think you're a gay cat boy. See, you should have gone. You should have been specific. You should have been like, Nick, there's a rumor that you're a gay cat boy because you hung out with a gay cat boy and you got caught looking at trap or trans porn or something.
he didn't bring that up. He didn't pull that one out.
He pulled up it's so weird. He pulled out everything. He pulled out all the clips. He had everything. He didn't have the gay cat boy trans porn clip. Should have had that one in the back pocket.
Fascinating. Yeah, he should have asked him about. No one's asked him about that. Steven Crowder should have asked him about that, right? That's right up Steven's alley.
Yes,
Sending all his coworkers dick pics, right? Steven Crowder allegedly has sent dick pics to everyone in his office.
Yeah, what's up? Well, for Crowder, it's a little too close to home. Okay, he's got allegations against him too about similar things.
Right? Yeah. No. Well, I figured that would give him cover, though, right?
That's true. That's true. Did you see? Actually, before we get into this, it's very strange. Crowder's reaction to this on X was bizarre. I don't know if you saw it.
I have not been on Twitter for about a day and a half, so I didn't see any of the clips. I did listen to this yesterday, so.
Okay.
But I was doing a little electrical work, so I wasn't really on Twitter.
Well, it was weird. Because I saw Crowder had this post, and he says, Pierce Morgan is a liberal at heart, so he spent the whole interview trying to gotcha his way through identity politics on a guy who already rejects the premise. Which, if Crowder actually believes that, he might be retarded. But the thing is, I don't think Crowder is retarded, because I've heard him talk. You know, I've heard his show a lot. I've heard him do these back and forth with people on campus. He seems like a smart guy. I think Crowder is smart. So when he pretends to be stupid on X, that makes me think he's just lying, because he knows that Nick Fuentes' entire game is identity politics. His entire persona, his entire political philosophy is white people, or white Christians specifically, because Jews need not apply, that white Christians need to unify around identity politics and use identity politics against non-whites and against Jews. That's the basis, that's the soul of his entire movement. So then Crowder's like, oh, well, he rejects identity politics. Like, no, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, how that makes absolutely no sense at all.
And it's even strange. Well, it's even stranger too, because I went back. We saw the beginning.
Even from my perspective, like identity politics is dignity politics, and his beef is that the white race has been not treated with the kind of respect it deserves.
Right.
Yeah, so that's identity politics.
Of course. And, in the beginning of Crowder's interview with Fuentes, he asked the really stupid, are you racist? Are you anti-Semitic? And then he says, of course not, Crowder. And then they never bring it up ever again.
That's he doesn't challenge him at all. Yeah, exactly.
No, right. He's just like, oh, okay, well, that's good. But he does challenge him in the second half of the interview a lot about the fact that Fuentes is anti-Trump. And when I saw the whole interview, my feeling on it was, okay, I'll be charitable to Crowder. Maybe he's coming at it from the perspective of he doesn't think it's persuasive to say to people on the internet right, to say, hey, racism is bad, sexism is bad, anti-Semitism is bad. And, he doesn't think that would be an effective tax against Fuentes. So instead, he thinks it'd be more effective to attack the fact that Fuentes is very anti-Trump and is
Yeah.
doing a lot of damage to the Trump brand. I don't agree with that philosophy. If you don't gatekeep, you basically get what's happening with Candace Owens, where you just have people will keep pushing it further and further and more insane until it's out of control. So you do have to gatekeep. You do have to stand for something. But I was being charitable to Crowder, and I thought that's what he was doing. But then when he randomly, for no reason, starts attacking Piers Morgan for this conversation, lying about identity politics, saying that it's gotchas to play clips of Nick Fuentes, and talked to him about the fact that he has kind of the dual persona that Coleman Hughes talks about, where on his own show, he's like hyper incendiary. And then when he goes on the podcast circuit, he's, oh, listen, I'm very moderate. Those aren't gotcha questions. That's like, okay, what are you doing? Are you, who is the real person? Why are you pretending to be someone different in public? And for Crowder to sit there and be like, oh, that's just a gotcha. That makes me think, okay, well, Crowder actually agrees with Fuentes on all the identity politics shit. He actually does agree with all that stuff. He just doesn't want to be as upfront with it as Fuentes is. Because I don't understand why else he would defend Fuentes in this way on X.
Crowder thinks Hitler's super based.
Or at least he's on board with the white identity politics aspect.
Right. Okay.
Because why else would he
the
defend
grievance
Fuentes?
politics?
Yes, 100%.
I'm not sure. I mean, I brought up the same thing you're bringing up now with Crowder with Tucker Carlson when we talked about him, that whether or not you could try to be persuasive and win those people over. I don't know. I mean, we're in a strange territory here, because I think a lot of people could react to this interview just thinking Nick Fuentes is great. Nick Fuentes is amazing. And
right.
We're really at a crossroads here where I really don't know what the public reaction would be to this. My reaction obviously is like horrified, which I just think is part of my upbringing, right? Look, I was raised on movies like Schindler's List, which they actually make fun of in this. So
right.
I at a gut level perceive of the Holocaust as just one of the worst periods in American history and in human history. So
yeah, not really American history, but yeah.
Well, look, we turned a blind eye to it. What are you talking about?
I guess that's true. We did turn away Jewish immigrants who are trying to flee.
And not only that, I mean, we just were like, let them do whatever, right? I mean, we were, who knows how much we actually knew what was going on, right?
Well, I thought my understanding is that they didn't really, most people didn't know.
Right. Okay.
What like the extent of what exactly was going on until afterwards.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, anyway, just, obviously it's just, there are a lot of people now that haven't grown up with that kind of understanding of the situation or the narrative, and just his bold face, just not willing to take that narrative seriously. And I think there's a lot of it woke me up to, there's a lot of people who don't take that narrative seriously and think, oh yeah, why? It's weird, because I don't know if they think it will never happen. That possibility is remote, if it could happen at all, or they think this needs to happen, right? Which is even scarier, right? I mean, geez.
Right.
We're gonna do Holocaust 2.0.
Right. And then and I want to play that part too, because there's so much dishonesty from the way that Nick has these conversations, where he'll say that he likes Jews, he respects them, but and then he even agrees with the Holocaust numbers in one breath, but then the other breath, like, well, there's all these questions about it. It's not true. Nobody cares about it. Hitler is cool. And it's like, okay, well, you can't, those are two contradictory opinions. And everyone knows that. And yet there's like this weird thing. Well, he'll just say them. And I guess his audience they don't care at this point. Everyone knows. I think most of his audience knows what he's about. They don't care. They just want to see him seize more fame and political power. So they're totally fine with him being hyper dishonest in these public settings.
Yeah, no, I did not believe his his Holocaust revisionism, I guess, because it's like everyone commonly thinks of Nick Fuentes as a Holocaust denier. He came out openly and said, yeah, 6 million Jews, if not more. I thought his audience is probably listening to that going, he doesn't believe that. He's just lying to Piers because of the social environment, which they even talked a little bit about the social environment.
Yeah.
So, which, you know, it is what it is. I just, I thought Piers, I think, did really good in the very beginning, although the family stuff, it's hard to gauge how people will take that. They could take it as a low blow, and it was so early on that it could have poisoned the audience against Piers. And then Piers in the crime section, oh my God, he was so pathetic. He was terrible. Like he couldn't even understand the numbers difference with a mass shooter versus like random carjackings, right? You know, if a mass shooter goes and kills 20 people, but 20 people kill 20 people in carjackings, like which are you more likely to encounter in the environment, right? Obviously the 20 people who are doing petty crime.
Yeah. Well, I was curious though, because he said, in that section, he claimed that he was saying that Nick had the wrong statistical numbers about, you know, how many black people were doing violent crimes, and then saying that the amount of mass shootings, I don't know if he said mass shootings or just murders or something. It was like basically the same proportion. And I don't know. I tried to like look to find that information in the numbers, the way that they were kind of describing the numbers, and I actually couldn't find it. So I'm curious as to what the truth of that claim is.
I thought
But I
Piers
agree.
did
I think
fine
that was
in that
kind of
part. And Nick
kind
was citing some Twitter account, it sounded like, not really reputable statistics. So that part I thought he did fine. But when Piers pivoted to the mass shooters and wanted to make an argument that white people, you should be afraid of white people because of mass shootings, I was like, please stop. Just stop. Stop. Stop, you idiot. Stop. Right? It's like you're throwing away everything. You're completely throwing away everything on this argument. And look, it was early on too, so I thought, oh man.
Squeeze Louise for $5 says Fuentes says he's attracted to women. Destiny is a woman's name confirmed. True. Panda Tree.
I'm not sure I believed the cold open.
You don't believe he's attracted to women?
Well, look, I was not really paying attention. I was only listening to the interview. I saw it when the cold open played, and I was like, I'm not sure. He doesn't seem like he really does. I mean, when I talk about how I'm attracted to women, my whole face lights up. I'm like, oh yeah, women. Just thinking about women. Yeah, you know, my face lights up. I'm excited. I'm like, yes. I think of a beautiful woman, and I'm like, yes. And he didn't get that. His face didn't light up. I didn't see it. He
doesn't like women. Everyone knows it. Everyone's 100%. There's no, like, you have a guy in his position. You have all these women supposedly throwing themselves at him, and he's just like, no. Like, what? This is like that's the number one thing for every guy in every circumstance that's doing like a cult or doing any sort of like political movement or whatever. He's like, oh, he's fucking a bunch of women. Like, that's the number one thing that you find out in all these circumstances. He's like,
of course, yeah. That's why you start a cult, right?
Right, exactly. There's only one way that guy is not doing that.
Anytime any sort of relationship stuff comes up on the show, Sitch and I, obviously we have to evaluate the players involved, and we bring up the women, and we're like, oh yeah, you know, is this worth getting arrested over? That's how you can tell we like women, right? I don't know if Nick Fuentes ever does that, right?
No,
I don't know if there's if women come into the conversation, which I'm sure they do. I don't know if he's like, let me think.
Right.
How far would I go with this woman? Anyway,
you know, you're talking about empathy, and your kids are empathetic, and they would never laugh at a joke about the Holocaust, and you're a misogynist. You're a simp yourself. You're totally henpecked. That's the problem. So we are going back to the way
Let me play another clip of yours about women.
A lot of women want to be raped, and when I say raped, I mean like That sounds bad when I say it like that. But there's like a lot of women that really want a guy to beat the shit out of them. But also they have to pretend, but part of it is they have to pretend like they don't.
You think women want to be raped, do you?
That's what the studies show, Piers. That is what these statistics say.
But that's what you believe,
They
is
have
it?
fantasies. They have fantasies about it. I don't think that they want to actually get raped, but there's a study out there. Get ready for this. It says 60.
This is always kind of the thing too that he and a lot of other people do is they'll make in the safe space when they have their safe space they'll make that the incendiary version, the hyperbolic version of the claim. Women want to get raped, and then when they have to publicly defend it, they're like, well, there's a lot of people that want to have that fantasy. I mean, they obviously don't actually want to be raped. It's like, well, that's not what you said when you were in your safe space.
Yeah, I think his response is good, though. I think pivoting to the fantasies and bringing up the movies.
It's not, yeah. It's the best you can do in that circumstance.
Well,
even I'm just talking about studies and fantasies.
Even in the clip, though, it sounds like he's joking because he says, "Oh, it sounds really bad when I say it like that."
Right.
Because he's like, he's basically revising, saying I shouldn't say it like that. What I'm really saying is that they fantasize about being raped. So
yeah, but he doesn't say that. That's the thing. I understand what you're saying. Like you can get that impression, but if that's what he meant, then that's what he would say. He would say, well, women have this fantasy, right? They wouldn't say, well, no, they want to do it. They want to be raped.
I want to know how much preparation Nick did for this interview, because this is a tough call, and I kept asking myself after this interview, who walks away the victor in this? Like, was this a net positive for Nick Fuentes? And I think it might be. I think it might be a net positive because so Piers keeps bringing out his super incendiary clips, and a lot of them he has good responses for that I think dismiss a lot of the controversy. So, and I don't, this is the thing, I don't know from my older perspective, from the Gen X perspective, I think a lot of people who are Gen X will look at this and think, oh my God, he's a Nazi. This is David Duke all over again. Right. But the thing is, I think a lot of Gen Z might look at this and think, oh man, this guy says what's on his mind. He's completely authentic. Even the exchange where Piers says he's doing it for the money. Immediately I thought, what? What? This is not the kind of thing you do for the money. Maybe if Piers would have said you're doing it for the notoriety, I'd say, okay, Piers, you've got a point. But as soon as he said you're doing it for the money, I thought, oh, this guy's out to lunch. Piers doesn't know what he's talking about. Look, Piers is bringing him on the show for the money. Right. Piers brings all of these incendiary personalities onto his show for the money. He says the things that are going to make Piers rich that Piers can't say. Piers won't say.
I agree on the terms of, I think that older people and more not internet brain rotted people will watch this conversation, or they'll see clips because they're probably not going to watch the whole thing. They'll see clips of the conversation and they'll hear the incendiary thing that Fuentes will say on his show, and then they'll just turn off. They're like, oh, this guy's just a piece of shit. And then that's what they'll take away from it. And then other people who are internet brain rotted or are more in Nick's camp or more sympathetic to Nick's camp will hear this conversation and will say, oh yeah, he did awesome. He did great and whatever. So I do agree with that already. I think those people have basically made up their mind already. I don't think that they'll look at it from the perspective of saying, oh, well, I like him because he's authentic. Because the one thing I think that Piers did well in this conversation, if you actually listen to the whole thing, now maybe if you're just listening to clips, who knows? But if you listen to the whole thing, Nick is like so not authentic in any of this conversation. He constantly flip-flops back and forth, not just between the clips that Piers shows, but between what he says in the conversation, saying, oh, I love Jews. Oh, Jews are out to, screw everyone over and we need to kind of organize against them. Oh, and this is why we'll talk about the whole thing with his parents, which was interesting, was like, oh, my parents aren't racist. Oh, everyone's racist. Oh, well, no, my parents aren't actually racist. oh, I don't have any problem with black people. Oh, here's a clip of me saying that most black people should be put in jail. Oh, when I said most, I didn't actually mean most. I just meant those that committed murder should be put in jail, which isn't most black people anyway. So to me, I can understand that people will just be like, they'll like it because they like the message, or they're just, on board with sort of the anti-woman aspect or the white identity politics aspect. But there's nothing to me that kind of pops out as authenticity from Nick.
Yeah. Okay. This is every single person who watches this is going to have a different take, obviously.
Right.
So
You have your Rashomon
the
situation.
thing that where I try to have some humility is to think, well, the take that I'm having, my intuition about this is probably wrong.
Right.
And I don't know the numbers. You say people who are internet brain rotted, right? How many people their social circle is primarily the internet? The people that they interact with are online.
A lot of people, a
and
lot of young people.
personalities.
Yeah. A lot of young people. Yeah.
So is that internet brain rotted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So is if it's like most young people,
Right.
they're going to have a completely different take on this. And I just look, even in the part where Hitler comes up and he's like, I'm just not doing this, and he goes full in about how amazing Hitler is. I thought this man needs to be studied. Like the psychological reactants are off the charts here. Like
Right.
he senses that he's supposed to say one thing and he's just like, no, fuck you. I'm going to say the complete opposite.
Yeah, but see, that's to me where I don't see how I mean, I can understand anyone can see anything, but I don't, to me, perceive anything as being authentic from him. Because if he's going to say, "Oh, I love Jews," and we'll play that part because I think that was kind of interesting. He's like, "Oh, I don't hate Jews," and he has like a 1 minute spiel about how he's, respects the Jews or likes the Jews or whatever, and then you turn around and say, "But Hitler was super cool and awesome." Obviously, those are contradictory opinions. You can't like Jews and then also like the guy who believed that Jews were behind all the bad things in the world and went on a global campaign to wipe them out.
Right. Yeah.
So how is
well,
that?
he's trying to frame it as just him. It's the power that he found enticing, interesting.
Yeah, but he would never say that if there was some Hitler version. If there's a Hitler guy who did this for white people, trying to eliminate
Yeah.
all the white people from Africa or South Africa or some place in the world. Regardless, even if he did all the same thing, all the same, uniforms and powers and what, blah, 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 blah. Nick would never in a million years ever say like, oh, this guy was super cool and awesome. I don't agree
Yeah.
with him, killing the identity group that I think should, rise to power and support itself, but it was still cool and awesome. Like he would obviously never say that.
Yeah. Wasn't there a battle between Protestants and Catholics?
There was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. He would be more sensitive around those topics, obviously, because it would affect him.
Well, it's not even just sensitivity. It's that it's very obvious that the reason he supports Hitler isn't just because he likes authoritarians with power. It's because he agrees with the concept that Jews are behind everything. He said as much in many places that he thinks Jews are behind all these bad things in the world. So he agrees with the core concept there.
Right. That was Hitler's thinking.
Yep.
Yeah.
Says 62% of women have rape fantasies. And if you read anything that they're reading, if you watched what they're watching, what do you think 50 Shades of Grey is about? What do you think Twilight is about? I mean, that's just true.
It's interesting. This is the inverse of the feminist talking point that we all had to suffer, all the way back in 2014, 2015, 2016, is there's a lot of guys who have rape fantasies. If you've ever seen numbers on that, it's pretty high too. It's disturbingly high, the amount of males that enjoy fantasies where they're going to rape a woman. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that a guy is going to go out and actually commit a rape whatsoever. And yet, would we sit here and say like, oh, well, if a feminist goes out there and says, oh, well, all men are rapists, then that's just something like that's a totally fine talking point, and that there should be some sort of policy or some sort of public opinion to be formed on the fact that a lot of men have this sort of sexual fantasy, even if they never act upon it.
Right. I mean, there is a lot of women's fiction that that does dabble around the ideas of consent in kind of strange ways, right?
Of course.
I don't think there's any I don't think there's any fiction like that for men, right?
That's not remotely true at all.
Oh, really?
That's one of the big even examples that all the feminists would point out to was in the James Bond movies. There's like the one James Bond movie where he like basically rapes what's her name, Octopussy or something.
Mm-hmm.
I forget her name. What are the evil female characters? I mean,
Right.
obviously afterwards it's like becomes consensual, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You think women want to have the shit beaten out of them, as you said?
Yeah, and it's very disturbing, but it's true.
Do you think your views on women might change if you actually?
But see, this is what I mean when it's sort of the inauthenticity of the whole thing. It's like, oh, well, it's just a fantasy. I don't think they actually want it. Well, okay, so you think that they want to get the shit beat out of them? Yes. Those are contradictory statements.
Do you think he doesn't believe the things he's saying? What do you mean by
No, I think he
inauthentic?
does. I think the inauthenticity is him hiding his power level.
Okay.
He does believe that women want to be raped and want to have the shit beat out of them and want to be subjugated. He does believe that. But then when he says, oh, I don't think they actually want that, that's the inauthentic statement.
Do you think he really believes women want to be raped and beat up?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, what is the basis of this is that's what he says, he thinks. And then every time he talks about women, he seems to have a visceral, angry disgust about them.
Right, but the question about whether women women can have rape fantasies without actually wanting to be
Of course.
raped by somebody, right?
Of course. Right.
So, and I think that is true.
Yeah,
I
that
think
is
the
true.
scientific research bears that out. So it seems like that is Nick's position as well. That he just believes the scientific literature. Like the not the way out there belief is that women actually do want to get raped. Like they're walking around wanting to, dreaming about being brutally raped by somebody. Which I'm sure there are people that believe that, but that's just like kind of a crazy belief to have. I don't think Nick has that belief. Do you?
So you think he's lying when he says that?
No, I think he's. What do you mean?
So when he says women want to be raped
Mhm.
and beaten up, you're translating that into he doesn't actually think that. He's just talking about a study, so that he's being truthful when he says, "Oh, I don't think they actually want that. It's just a study." But then 5 seconds later, when they say, "Well, do you think women want to get beaten up?" and then he says, "Yes." Do you understand where it's like suddenly there's a contradiction there? Because if he actually believed, well, I was talking about a fantasy, he would say, no, I don't think they actually want to. I think it's just some sort of closeted fantasy, and I should have been more clear in my language when I talked about it the first time. But he didn't say any of these things.
Right. Yeah. You think he should clarify?
I don't understand what you're not understanding. about
Well,
what I'm
look,
saying.
I think he did clarify, but look, let's just move on.
Okay. You know that again. Okay. It's very strange to me. Men have lots of fantasies about being raped and raping. If you look into statistics, and
Being
never
raped by
comes
a
up.
woman or being raped by a guy?
I assume a woman. Yeah, I
Straight
assume
men dream about being
I assume a
raped by
woman. I assume a woman. Yes.
Yeah,
but
I would
that
think.
doesn't mean that men are going to act upon any of these things.
No,
And
I
think
agree.
I think it's very dishonest for Fuentes and other people that have this conversation to pretend like there isn't an implication of that this means something about women's behavior and their place in society, especially when you say that they shouldn't have the ability to vote or
Mhm.
participate in society the same level as men. Then they just say, well, I'm just mean it's just a fantasy. I don't actually mean anything about it. It's like, well, then why do you bring it up in the context that you bring it up?
Well, how many times does he bring this up? This clip has been going around. He said it once on the show. I don't know if it's like a regular thing. I don't watch his show religiously. So
Okay.
if this is like a regular thing, if he brings it up every show, oh yeah, women love to be raped, I'd think, okay, well maybe he does believe that women
I mean, I've
actually
seen dozens
do
of
want-
every clip I've seen him talking about a woman. I've seen dozens of clips of him talking about a woman. They're always in a negative context.
Right, yeah, I've seen the negative
Yeah,
context.
I haven't
but
kept track
obviously
of
I've
how many
seen
times
he
he's talked
doesn't
about
believe
this
women
specific
should
issue.
vote. which is probably more a Catholic thing than anything. The place where I think he's lying, where I think I'm quite confident, but obviously, look, we're mind reading here. I can't be 100% sure, but my intuition is that he doesn't believe the numbers of the Holocaust. And he just came out and said, oh, yeah, it's totally 6 million. That's the place where I think, okay, well, he's looking straight at Piers Morgan and not telling the truth. This, whether or not women want to be raped or not, it's hard for me to imagine that he believes like the misogynist incel perspective. Maybe he does. Like maybe you're exactly correct.
Okay.
And he's lying here as well, but
okay. I don't know. I don't know why you'd find that hard to believe, considering everything else he said. But
well, because he seems very rational. He seems very he's making arguments from a rational perspective, don't you think?
you don't think it's okay. You have a person who thinks from this rational perspective that most black people should be put in jail, that Jews are behind everything bad in the world, that Hitler is cool, and that women shouldn't be able to vote. To me, it's not a big step then to leap to say, well, that he also thinks most women actually would enjoy the concept of being subjugated.
Okay.
I don't see why that's a big jump.
Okay. Where are we going next?
Ever had a relationship with one or had sex and actually had a proper relationship? I mean, people say the reason you're so angry about women is you're basically an incel.
Well, I'm not angry about it.
You sound very angry. You sound very, very angry about women.
I'm passionate. It's an issue.
You're
I'm
not passionate.
about.
You're sounding very bitter about women, as if women have done a terrible disservice to you. But when you don't have relationships, you don't have sex, when are they doing these terrible things to you that's made you so hateful towards women? I'm really curious.
I don't think that was a hateful clip. I think I was laughing. I said they want men to beat the shit out of them. And that's just true. I mean, when you look at the state of modern women, all they do is lay in their bed, doom scroll. They're chilling out. They're getting a little fat. It is what it is. I don't know what the average weight.
But he said again, that's just true. Right? He said that's just true. That's not a fantasy. That's just true. That's just what they want.
Mm-hmm.
It is, but they're getting a little heavy. And any guy that is playing the field these days will tell you that. I mean, and I know a lot of the Chads. I am an incel. I'm friends with a lot of Chads like Bradley Martin, Clavicular. They agree with me. You know, there's sort of like this alliance between the guys that don't have sex and the guys that get the most sex. We know what women are about. It's the guys in the middle. Guys like you in the middle. It's the beta male orbiters that say, she's amazing. You're a misogynistic pig. Because I don't know what that is. I guess.
Well, come on. Let me explain to you what I think it is.
This is an interesting observation that he points out here, that there seems to be this sort of alliance or this connection between the people that aren't having sex and then the people that are having the most sex, the people who are basically, just going through women, abusing women, or at least saying that they are, whether they actually are or not. And it's very much a scorpion and a frog situation that people haven't tapped into yet. And, just in case you don't know, the scorpion and the frog is the whole concept of the scorpion asks the frog to take him across the river. And the frog says, no, because if I do, you're going to stab me in the back and I'm going to die because of your venom. And the scorpion says, of course I won't do that, because then I'll drown. So the frog says, oh, that makes sense. So he tries to take the scorpion across the river. Boom, scorpion, of course, stabs him in the back and they both drown. And the frog says, why would you do that? And scorpion says, it's in my nature to do that. And the whole point of that story, I think this is one of the most important things for people to really remember on a deep level when they interact with people, is that people that show you their nature in terms of how they treat other people. If you know someone who treats other people with dishonesty, who uses and abuses other people, you're a fool if you think that person is not going to do the same to you. And this applies so strongly to this exact situation that he's talking about here, this observation look at Tate. Andrew Tate, of course, was a perfect example. The guy who sort of makes this whole persona is on like, oh, you know, I just use women, I go through women, and I'll teach you how to go through women, and blah 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 blah. This guy made his fortune not just using women. A lot of people in the media would only focus on that part of it because everything's kind of unbalanced in terms of the gender dynamics, and people unfortunately don't really care about men very often. But he was making his money abusing and lying to men. He was having women, and he would joke about this, and all these other people would just laugh it up. He would have these women lie to men who weren't in relationships, who were desperate for relationships. He'd get all these women to lie to them on the internet about, oh, well, I'll go run off with you. I just need you to give me like $5,000, $10,000. I just need a plane ticket. Just give me more of your money and maybe we can be together. The whole thing, the entire process of what Andrew Tate and all these other people are doing is just abusing people. They're abusing men and women in different ways, but just abusing people and taking advantage of people. And all those people, all these guys that, you know, they point to, oh, these are the alpha chads or whatever. All these people that just abuse women, of course they turn around and then they abuse men as well. They take advantage of men. They use them as suckers to make all this money off of them and make these big, you know, audiences from incels and all these desperate men off of them exactly the same way that Andrew Tate did.
Sure. Yeah.
I think when a 27-year-old guy who's never got laid, never had a meaningful relationship with a woman, says that women shouldn't be allowed to vote, they should stay at home, that all they do is fantasize about being raped and being beaten up, that's what they want, that they're annoying, that they get fat, that they get ugly. That's a misogynist. Now, you may not understand it because your knowledge of women is so incredibly tiny, but actually you are the embodiment of a misogynist. It couldn't be clearer. And if I was in a way, you have the deep-rooted misogyny of some of the actual boomers I know. Yet here you are, 27 years old. And most of the current studies show that a lot of men are really disenfranchised from society, no longer have physical relationships with women if they've ever had them, never associate with women, and build up instinctively misogynist views about women. And I fear you're in that position. You're just a bit of a lonely guy who wants to get laid and can't for whatever reason. And it's made you bitter about women. And I don't know where that's come from, but it's fascinating.
Do you buy this? That he's
not for Fuentes, no. I think it's true for a lot of Fuentes' followers, but I don't think it's even really true for him. I mean,
yeah. So
we,
look,
we both think he's gay. So.
Piers just comes off as clueless here.
Yeah.
Completely clueless.
Yes.
This line of attack is just, I mean, it's ridiculous. I bet Nick has 20 girls he could call up and
sure
for a booty call easily.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the idea that this internet celebrity can't get laid is just, I mean, Piers.
Yeah.
You're
stupid.
fucking dying here. You're dying here.
You agree though that this probably applies to his audience, not to Nick though.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yes. There are a lot of true incels out there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I think that is a challenge for a lot of guys.
No, see, here's the thing. First of all, you're very caught up in the labels. It's always, you're a racist, you're a misogynist.
You said
these
you were
words
a racist.
mean nothing to me. Oh, hang on. Whoa, can I respond?
You gave yourself the label.
What is this?
You said, I am a racist. I didn't give you the label. Okay. You said, Nick Fuentes, I am a racist.
Calm down. Calm down.
Did you or didn't you?
It's okay.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
so
here's
I didn't give you the label. You did.
Why are you yelling at me?
Because you're trying to infer something that didn't happen. You said, I gave you the label of being a racist. No.
See, he said, you're caught up in these labels.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's making a completely different argument here. He's not saying, hey, you called me this and I hate you. He's saying, look, these labels are kind of meaningless.
Right.
So this diversion here.
Well, this is the thing that we always warned about, the whole cry wolf situation. This was part of the big danger that the left basically cultivated by calling everyone racist and sexist when people actually weren't, was that they weakened these categories so strongly.
That nobody
they're
gives
not-
a fuck.
Yeah, that nobody cares. When conceptually, because the conceptual argument, like, oh, these are just labels or whatever. If you think about it for like a second, you actually kind of detach it from the current situation. The argument of like, oh, we shouldn't care about labels. That's a retarded argument, and it's actually it was the far left want to destroy all of society argument, because no one would accept this if there is some Amos Yee character who said the same thing. You have someone like Amos Yee or someone who's advocating to get rid of the age of consent and thinks it's totally fine for adults and children to have sexual relations, and you're like, well, you're a fucking pedophile, and they say, whoa, 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 you're so hung up on the label. Like no one would ever accept that, because they understand that the label, the thing that's important isn't the label. The thing that's important is the label has a concept behind it, a concept that most people agree is horrible. And it's like, okay, well, if the person actually is the horrible thing that the label confers, well, then that's bad. That's a problem. We shouldn't really support that person.
Yeah, unless the label's been completely eviscerated by culture, which racism pretty much has been, right?
Well, that's the problem, is that it's not, well, both the label, since people, unfortunately, people are word thinkers for the most part, kind of like LLMs, which is ironic. And so, like, when the label loses a lot of its potency because of its overuse incorrectly, then also like there's like conceptual creep. Then the concept also loses a lot of its potency.
Yeah. We need a new word.
Yeah.
No one cares about racism anymore.
Oh, you did. You said, I'm a racist. You
Okay.
gave yourself a label.
Gonna have to tone it down a little, all right? You're gonna have to bring it down a notch and relax. This is just an interview, okay? Please calm down. All I said is you're hung up. I didn't say you gave me that. Maybe I did.
You did.
But here's what I mean. What I mean is you're just hung up on proving you're a misogynist. Okay, you're a racist. Okay, you denied the Holocaust. And I'm not about the labels,
You
man.
didn't deny
I'm
the
just
Holocaust.
past that.
As I said to you, look, Nick, as I said to you, I just wanted to go over the stuff that everyone uses out there about you and get you to respond. And we are getting, I think, a long way in this interview.
Okay.
Right? You didn't deny the Holocaust. You accepted there's been a Holocaust of at least 6 million Jews.
I'm a maximalist. I'm a Holocaust.
That is significant.
I think it's more.
You did admit you're a racist, and you have spelled
That's
out
true.
a thought process about women, which is the purest definition of misogyny that I've ever seen. And you've said you're not gay. So we're getting.
That's the weird thing too, is that in this conversation, Piers says, you admitted you're a racist. You said that you're racist. And he says, that's true. And it doesn't matter because, you'll have this conversation with anyone about Nick, forever till the end of time. And be like, oh, well, he's racist. And they'll say, no, he's not. What are you talking about? It's like, he said he was racist. What are you fucking talking about? Here's a million clips of him saying racist things. And here's a clip of him saying he's racist. And it's just like, no, he's not racist.
This
crazy.
is where
You're
all the
delusional.
CRT stuff has done immense damage. Because according
Yes.
to Robin DiAngelo, we're both racist. Piers
Right.
Morgan is a racist.
Right.
Everyone is a racist, right? So
Right.
what's the point?
But that is part of the problem.
Look, Nick
And then
is
also,
one of the good racists because he's already admitted it. He's come to terms, right?
There you go. There
Like
you go.
Robin, he's signed up for Robin DiAngelo, and he's good with it now.
Well, and I wouldn't even be surprised if you would hear some Nick fan would say what you're saying, like completely trying to pass it off, like as if we don't know that Robin DiAngelo and Piers Morgan have completely different definitions of racism. And they have this conversation.
Right? Yeah. No, but that's the problem. That is the
yeah.
exact problem with the Robin DiAngelo stuff.
Right.
Because they allow people to believe that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's kind of the Incredibles when everyone's racist, no one's racist.
It is. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
somewhere.
Yeah. Well, look, and I own the labels, okay? But I
Okay.
just don't care that much about them.
That's fine.
I feel like the whole.
I'm not saying
this
you
is
have-
like a weird.
I'm not saying you
Yeah, go
have to
ahead.
care, Nick. You don't have to care about any of it. I promise you. Right? That's not why I got you on the show. I wanted to give you a fair crack, which I think I have. We've gone over a lot of stuff. We've got a bit more to go on. I genuinely don't think I've ambushed you with anything you couldn't have been expecting.
No.
I don't think I've been
not at
overtly
all.
hostile. In fact, when you've asked me to calm down, I've calmed down. I don't want to have a hostile angry, shouty match with.
So it's interesting. He says he owns the labels, because we all just saw that conversation he had with Steven Crowder. Steven Crowder said, "Are you racist?" And he said, "No." So this is what I mean when I talk about the inauthenticity of Fuentes. What, like, he says, okay, I'm not racist. I'm talking to Steven Crowder. When I'm talking to Piers Morgan, he says he is racist. What is true here at this point? Why is he saying different things? If he really truly owns the label, then why does he deny it to Crowder? Why didn't he say to Crowder, "Oh yes, I'm racist," and we're taking it back? You know, being racist is a cool thing, is a base thing. Why doesn't he say that to Crowder?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think the answer is, if he said yes to Crowder in the beginning of that conversation, it would force Crowder to have a completely different conversation, because Crowder's not at the point where he could sit by and agree with that position. So he's actually like has to do the performance where he's like, well, no, I'm actually not racist.
Yeah, that's why he's going on all these shows. He's speaking to all of these different audiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. They talk about that in here too. I think the left calls it code switching. Right? He's code switching. That's what he's doing. He's like, look, this crowd doesn't seem like they're big into Holocaust denial. So
right. Okay, I'm gonna jump back to a different part now.
In your interview with Steven Crowder last week, you answered emphatically that you don't hate all Jews. Is that correct? That's your position?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to play you this clip.
Well, I don't hate any Jews. Let me just amend that. I don't hate any Jews.
Okay. Let's play this clip.
Well, everyone knows that's not true. He doesn't hate any Jews.
What about
not a single person who's Jewish he hates? Okay. The whole thing with Tucker was about how much he hates Ben Shapiro, but he doesn't hate any Jew.
The reason I've had it is because my opposition to world Jewry and Israel is rooted in absolute, uncontestable fact. We have the truth on our side. That's why we're winning. Because we are telling the truth about the historical antagonism between Jews and Europeans, between Jews and Christians. The theological, historical, racial, cultural, and political antagonisms between organized Jewry and the Christians, organized Jewry and Europeans. And the reason that we are winning that argument is because it's real, it's true. I can prove it. I can show you. I can name the names. I can show you the paper trail, the money. That is why we're winning. That is why all of this is raising the consciousness.
When you say,
if you're just listening to, it's kind of interesting. They from Pierce's crew, they have
Fuentes watch himself.
Yeah, that not only is Fuentes watching himself, but they have his little face in the bottom right corner so you can see his live reaction to it. And he's nodding along the whole time too. Yeah. So this is, to me, again, where I say this is how it's so inauthentic, is he says, "Oh, I don't hate any Jews." And well, here's a clip of him talking about how Jews historically and currently are destroying Europe and destroying society and are organized to do this thing, to subvert this thing. It's like, well, what the fuck? So you do hate Jews? It's like, well, no, I don't hate them. I just think they're the worst people ever and are subverting society. But I love them. They're wonderful. Everyone knows this isn't true. Everyone can feel on the deepest level, and the even surface level and deepest level, that this is not true, that this is horribly inauthentic, that this is a lie when he says these things.
You have this opposition to world Jewry. I mean, it's one thing to criticize, for example, the Israeli government over what it's been doing in Gaza. I've done that myself. When you talk about world Jewry, I presume you're talking about the 15 million Jews in the world, and you are opposed to them. How does that square with your position that you don't hate any Jews?
Well, do you take issue with my use of the term world Jewry?
Well, what do you mean by that?
Or do you take issue with it? Do you have a problem with that?
Clarify what you mean by it.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. The gaslighting's crazy because I use that expression on my show all the time. I say organized Jewry, world Jewry. And do you know that for like 30 years, the World Jewish Congress has an annual keynote called the state of world Jewry? Barry Weiss has given it. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. She gives the state of world
but what do
Jewry
you
address.
mean? But Nick, what do you mean by it?
So the argument is, well, when I say that the Jews are all organized to subvert society, that's fine. I'm actually just referring to this charity nonprofit organization, this pro-Jewish activist organization that I'd never even heard of till today. Most people have never even fucking heard of today. And they have some speech where they use the same language where they say, you know, Jewry. That's actually what the entire time he was talking about this. That's was what he meant. He didn't mean that all Jews were working together to subvert society, Western society. No, he was just talking about this one charity organization.
I mean, people are word thinkers, and I do think people focus on the word Jewry or world Jewry and think that that is something a conspiracy theory. Yeah, something a conspiracy theorist says.
Right.
Yeah. And he did completely neutralize that argument immediately by pointing out that, no, this is a common term that Jewish people themselves use. It's not a conspiracy theory.
Well, here's the problem. Yeah, he'll neutralize it to people who are dumb and are not paying attention to the conversation and don't know anything about the topic.
I mean, look, I think that's optimistic. I think that's very optimistic.
Okay, maybe.
I think this neutralizes it to normies as well. That's why I think, look, I think I'm looking at this completely differently as you. I'm looking at this as this is like a good performance for normies. And you're looking at it like everyone can see right through
no,
this.
I'm not looking at it from the perspective whatsoever of, in this conversation I'm having with you about this.
Uh-huh.
There's two different conversations. This conversation about whether this is persuasive to different people. And then there's the conversation of, well, let's actually analyze Nick's points to see if they're true or not. Right. And those are two different conversations. So you could be right that maybe that is persuasive to people. That's fine. But I'm going to analyze it and say why it's a stupid fucking point. It's a stupid point because as a Jewish person, I've never heard another Jewish person say Jewry ever in my entire life. This is like the whole thing with like academic
is what he's saying true? Did Barry Weiss give a speech?
There is this organization that's called like the World Jewish Congress or whatever that I never even heard of before this, that has some speech where they talk about like, or they use the term world Jewry or something. Yes,
right. Yeah. True. The state of world Jewry.
Yes.
Okay.
But you understand that just because one organization does this, that has nothing to do with the concept that he's talking about.
No, obviously. Look, there is a conspiracy.
Well, that's what I'm. Okay.
There's a conspiracy that Jews run the world. Okay. And a lot of people who believe that conspiracy use the term world Jewry, right? Right. But there is also people in like society, right? In academia, in the media, whatever, they use the term as well. So it is good rhetorically for him to say,
yeah, no, this is a good,
yeah.
If he's trying to weasel out of this stuff, this would be the way to weasel out of it. 100%. Yes.
Right. But
I understand. I agree with that.
Piers never pivots to, well, do you believe the conspiracy?
Right.
Which is horrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Piers did not do, Piers doesn't do a good job in a
so
lot
this
of parts
this
of
section here, win Nick Fuentes, okay?
Right.
And look at, well, I'm looking at it
maybe.
as the normies are going to look at this and they're going to think, oh, this guy's fine.
So moving aside from
all the normies are going to go to work now and talk about world Jewry and think, oh, it's fine. Barry Weiss speaks at the World Jewry Conference every year.
I don't think so, because if Nick Fuentes is going on and on about how there's organized Negroes or colored people that are trying to subvert white society, and then you say, well, what the fuck are you talking about?
He's talking about the NAACP.
That sounds totally racist. And he's like, well, no, it's not racist, because actually there's an organization in America called the NAACP, and it's called the National Advancement of Colored People, right in the title. It's right there, right? I don't think that's going to be persuasive. People
have, yes, but people have enough context to realize why that's not persuasive. They know that.
Well, that's
they don't necessarily. Nobody uses this term Jewry. I never use it. I don't know if it's good or bad or what. But this is the first I'm hearing of it.
that's a good point, is because so we're simultaneously, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of an interesting, not hypocrisy, but kind of an interesting duality of this, is that maybe you can get away with persuading people that this term Jewry isn't meant to be offensive by citing something no one's ever fucking heard of before, but then also
Yes.
trying to say that it's common. And you're like, well, if it's common, then how's no one ever fucking heard of it before?
Well, they would think because I'm not Jewish.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
They don't have the Jewish perspective. Like you
Right.
think it's uncommon because you have a Jewish perspective. So.
Yes. Yes. And I've only ever heard.
I've only ever heard the conspiracy theorists.
Yeah,
use
I've
it.
only ever heard the people that hate
Right.
the Jews bring up this term and use it in any sort of context
Right.
whatsoever. Yeah.
But look, I'm not privy. I don't go to synagogue, so I don't know. Maybe they say it every week at synagogue. I don't know.
Right. Right.
I mean, you have to talk about, there's a concept of Jewish peoplehood. It's the sense that they are part of a common nationality, a common tribe, a common people. And so where they reside in Israel, the United States or Europe or elsewhere, they see each other above or maybe on a different level alongside their nationality, their state, wherever they reside. If they're in Germany, France, the United States, they see themselves as part of a transnational nation, of an international nation. The Jews in America, the Jews in Israel, they identify as Israeli or American, but they also have something in common. They identify as part of a common nation, which I would say there's a world Jewish population. It's world Jewry. And
so he does immediately after this, is it? I mean, again, these conversations, people only pay attention to half of it and they kind of tap out or whatever. He does immediately say afterwards, well, he's not talking about whatever this dumb organization is. He's talking about he does believe that Jews are active in this cabal together where they place their group identity above, whatever America or whatever country that they're from, which he said several times on his own show.
Yeah.
interest as that nation, as that tribe.
So if you don't hate any Jews, what do you like about them?
I like a lot of things about them. I think they're funny. I think they're smart. I think that they're pretty remarkable people. And as Christians, especially as Catholics, we say they're remarkable. And this has been adjudicated in Catholic doctrine for thousands of years. We say that they're a witness people. And so we actually, there's provisions inside of Catholic doctrine that says we need to give them special protections because they were a witness to Christ's passion. So, this is why you can't clip the show. You have to watch the whole thing. I say this repeatedly in interviews. I do think they're remarkable. By definition, they're exceptional people. It's just that there is a sort of natural opposition between them and Christians because of the theology. We believe that Christ is a Messiah. They don't. They have been a minority in Christian lands for thousands of years, and they have been pushed around and expelled, and they've been persecuted and segregated. And that's why there's a lot of paranoia. There's a lot of distrust. There's maybe some sense of chauvinism among Jewish people. So there is, like I said in that clip, there is an historical antagonism between these two peoples, between Christendom and Jewry, and that has always been the case in Europe. But I don't hate them, and I think I actually sort of understand them in a weird way. I think that because I've studied a lot of their politics, I think I really kind of know them in a way, and it doesn't come from a place of hatred.
Do you have any Jewish friends?
I do. I have many, yes.
Well, that's weird because you said this.
Jews and Christians have never been friends, ever. Not since Jesus Christ fought with the Pharisees. Have we ever been friends? Not since Saul was leading the charge persecuting the Christians. Not since the Roman Empire, not since the Middle Ages. Never. We've never been friends. We've never been allies. We've always been set against each other, actually. And even here in the United States, it was communist Jews who were the architects of both communism and the civil rights laws that are dispossessing white Christians of their land and civilization.
So Jews and Christians have never...
This is where I see the massive inauthenticity, the massive dishonesty of him. He'll go on that 1 minute spiel about how great Jews are, and then it's like, well, here's a clip of you talking about how fucking horrible they are and how Christians hated Jews and have good reason to hate Jews, actually, from the beginning for the last 2,000 years.
Right.
Been friends ever, except for you and your Jewish friends.
Yeah, so easy. As peoples, as nations.
Got it.
Not saying every individual Christian, and of course there have been Christians.
Oh, listen, the Jews. This is like so stupid. The argument is, oh, well, the Jews, they've subverted your society as a group, but as an individual person, you shouldn't judge them as an individual. You can totally be friends with Jews as an individual. Yes, he should have had that clip that we played a few Sundays ago, where someone asked him this exact question. They said, someone in his audience on his own show says, do you have Jewish friends? And he says, yes. And he says, okay, do you trust those friends that are Jewish? And he says, no. He says he personally does not trust his own friends that are Jewish.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I have lots of friends I don't trust. So, I mean, I live in Los Angeles.
Yeah, but you don't trust them on the basis, not on the basis of whatever their religion or ethnicity is. You don't trust them on the basis of
I know their personality. I'm like,
right,
nah,
but he was saying in that clip, he doesn't trust them because
based
they're
on,
Jewish.
exactly. Yeah.
But it's so interesting. And I guess it's part of when we talk about like the persuasion element, or we talk about like what's going on in the internet sphere about it is, and maybe this is like a strength here. This is one of the great strengths that he has for his audience, is that he has cultivated an audience of people who are fine with him lying. Like they're totally fine with him lying, and they will repeat the lies themselves in public settings constantly for any reason.
Yeah, I think there's probably a subset that actually believe the lies, that don't really see them as lies.
I think there could be, but I think it's very small. I think it's their minority of the people that follow him.
I mean, this is an interesting thing about the performance, because you have two groups of people who believe contradictory things that both believe Nick Fuentes, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the people that believe, and there's the people who believe that he's lying because they want him to believe the more incendiary thing that they believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Christians and there have been Christian converts to Judaism, Jewish converts to Christian. You're nodding your head, but you're asking this. I'm saying as peoples, they've never been aligned.
As a Roman, I'm a Catholic like
Okay.
you, and I have many Jewish friends. I'm just trying to compute what you're trying to say, which is Jews and Christians have never been friends ever. And I'm like, well, you have Jewish friends, I have Jewish friends, we're both Catholics, therefore we're Christians. It doesn't really quite add up.
Well, like I said, as peoples, there has been an historical antagonism as peoples. And you could even say the same about blacks in the United States. Of course, there were black and white people that were friendly with each other, but in many ways, they were set against each other as groups. And I think that's easy enough to understand.
The reason
And this also came up in the Tucker conversation with, one of the few parts that Tucker was pushing back was he did say that he doesn't think people should be judged on the basis of their group identity. And he was talking about Jews and blacks. And Nick's response in that conversation was to dismiss all that and say that, he does believe in group identification. He doesn't believe in sort of the liberal individualism that exists in the West, and that he thinks that thinking about things that way is actually terrible and bad.
that many people think you're anti-Semitic is that you have regularly downplayed the Holocaust, and in particular the number of Jewish people who were murdered by the Nazis. It's been said that you believe no more than several 100,000 have been killed. And I want to play you this clip.
People talk about, well, what about the gas chambers? Well, to the extent that that's real, I find that hard to believe, but to the extent that's real, there have been atrocities committed and genocides committed in all times and all places. Let's acknowledge why Hitler casts the long shadow, because that confers a political benefit upon Jews. That's why.
It doesn't really sound correct to me. Wait a second. It takes 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies, and you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right? The math doesn't seem to add up there.
You think that's funny?
It's funny. It's amusing what you're doing because, that one was a joke. But do you want to talk seriously about the Holocaust?
Yeah, I do actually. I mean, I do, because I just find it extraordinary that you would think the Holocaust could ever be something that we could joke about.
Why, too soon? Is it too soon to make jokes?
How many people do you think died in the Holocaust? How many Jewish people?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe 7 million. What's the number? 6 million, something like that.
So you
8 million?
You concede that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust?
Possibly more. Possibly, we're discovering all the time. So it could maybe even be more than that.
So why have you doubted the numbers?
Yeah, see, this seems completely inauthentic. Well, it seems dual purposed. It seems authentic to his audience, where he completely goes in Andy Kaufman mode here, where he's like, "What? 10 billion, 20 billion,
that's a good comparison." Well, even though most people, I don't even know it, but yeah, it is very Andy Kaufman-esque performance.
Yeah, you tell me how many.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
In the past.
I'll tell you why. I really think that every death is a tragedy, however many Jewish people died in the Holocaust. And I'm not a World War II historian, so I'm actually open to believing the official narrative. And
How can you believe that every death is a tragedy for people that died in the Holocaust, but then say that Hitler is awesome?
Well, and to laugh at the guy that his mom got killed.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah. But again, it's just his audience just doesn't care. They're just totally fine with him lying.
Well, this is a thing, because a lot of it, for me, it depends upon the state of the world. I can understand where people who are desperate, who feel abandoned by society, they don't give a fuck. They don't give two shits about this dude losing his mom in the Holocaust. They're like, I can't survive. I can't find a job. I can't find a girlfriend. I'm never going to own a home. So there's real problems going on with people. And to ask them to care about your mom dying in the Holocaust a fucking million years ago, I think asking those people to care about that is not effective. Not effective in this. And that's basically what Piers Morgan is doing.
So what you're saying is very true. But this is the insidious nature, the despicable nature of what Nick is doing, and what people have been doing since the dawn of time. Is, you're right, there's all these people right now in America and all over the world that have real problems.
Yeah.
Real financial problems, real relationship problems, real health problems. But the thing is, then you have someone like Nick comes along and he says, who's the reason for all those problems you have right now?
Yeah.
It's the Jews.
Yeah, I know. It's
black
scary.
people.
Look, I get it.
All that energy that you have, all that anger you have towards the things going on in your life right now, it's all the Jews' fault. It's all black people's fault. It's all these groups of people's fault whatsoever.
Yeah.
They're the ones that do all of these things, which at the end of the day, number one, it's not even fucking true. And so any sort of energy that's going towards improving, that could be going towards actually improving your life or improving your society through legislation or political activism, is now just wasted. It's all stolen and wasted and given to Nick Fuentes and Nick Fuentes' movement, when it's not going to create any sort of positive change in any person's life whatsoever. It's just going to create more negative change.
Yeah, but Piers' way of fighting this is to present somebody whose mom died in the Holocaust and say, look, you should feel bad about this, which doesn't address the problem either. Like that, I don't think Piers did a good job in this at all.
Well, I don't think Pierce's reasoning or thought process was, I want to convince Fuentes' audience or young people that hating black people and Jews is bad. I don't think that was his thought process. I think his thought process was, I think his thought process was, I want to convince the normies out there, or older people, that Nick Fuentes is who people are saying he is. He is a person who does hate Jews, does hate black people, does hate women. I think that was the point of the conversation from his perspective. At least that's how he's handling the conversation.
Did those people need convincing? For me, the
I think they
problem
do.
is a widespread following that is fine with these ideas, or young people who are
I don't
becoming
think you're gonna-
politically active.
You're not gonna
That for me is the
convince-
real problem.
I think it is important to make it like just so ironclad solid to the people that haven't bought into this, what he is and what he represents, because this is the whole problem. And this is the whole thing that we had in all these conversations where he was on Crowder and all these other, and Tucker Carlson and all these other things, that he kept going on all these podcasts and basically they were laundering his reputation.
Right.
And so then now he's on Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan's like, well, I'm not going to launder his reputation. I'm going to show people what he is. And you're right. That's not going to be persuasive to his fans? Obviously not. But that's not the point. The point was to show to people that aren't his fans what he really is and what he really believes and what he really supports. And I do think that's really important. And I don't think that Piers Morgan, of all people, is capable of. I don't think most people are not capable of convincing the angry young people, hey, you shouldn't be racist. Hey, you shouldn't hate Jew people. I don't think you can convince someone of that once they go down that pathway. I think their lives have to change for the better. I think if you want to convince them that Nick is bad, you have to do that by just making fun of him and diminishing him and making him seem pathetic. I don't think it's like a position. It's not like a logical position. I think that you're going to like convince someone out of through logic or facts and reasons or anything like that.
Yeah. I think the numbers matter. The numbers definitely matter. So
read some of the conspiracy theories, and to tell you the truth, it's a rigorous debate. But you know what's interesting about this is in many countries it's not even.
So he just said it's the whole. He believes the numbers, but then he says it's a rigorous debate. And now he's going to go on a whole, minute-long thing about how yes, in Europe, they make Holocaust denial illegal in a lot of countries, and blah blah blah. People weren't allowed to study and all this other stuff. And then Piers says, I don't agree with any of that stuff, and that's all terrible. But it doesn't really have anything to do with the conversation, really, whatsoever, or your positions.
yeah, he gets Piers Morgan to agree with him for 25 minutes.
There is no debate to be had about the number of people who were murdered. Even the Nazis in the trials after the war.
And why, again, this is why I say the inauthenticity, dishonesty. When he says there's no debate there, and Nick gives the face of like, what are you talking about? I thought he just said that he thought 6 million, 7 million people died in the Holocaust. Now he's saying that there's a debate, and he acts surprised when Piers says that there's no debate.
Right. Well, obviously there are people who are Holocaust deniers that will debate this to no end, right?
Of course. But Nick is one of those people.
They are flat earthers, right? That will debate the flat earth.
Of course.
So to say that there is no debate is just, there's no academic debate, that's for sure.
Right.
It's
well, that's
just
what
that's
would
out
be
there debating.
That's the implied phraseology in what he's saying. There's not a real academic debate.
Piers Morgan would have been better off to bring up flat earth to make the point.
Right.
Yeah.
The numbers, the amount of documentation that was recovered, notwithstanding the attempts by the Nazis to destroy it, the amount of documentation that was saved and preserved and used for trials and for historical record is unprecedented in the history of mass slaughter of human beings. So we have a very clear idea of how many people were gassed to death in the gas chambers. We have a very clear idea of how many were starved to death, were kept in ghettos, died of disease, of forced labor, of death marches. We know how many Jews were slaughtered. It's at least 6 million. What's interesting to me is that you appear to now concede that, which may be news to a lot of your regular viewers who have constantly heard you quibble with the number of Jews who died in the Holocaust. And for the record, just to confirm what I think you told me, you do now accept that at least 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust.
Well, no, I said it could be It could even be higher than
Well,
that.
it could be higher. That is
I think
true.
it's at least.
But you
I think you're
accept
right.
at least.
It is at least. Oh, it's at least 6 million. But it
Okay.
could be 100
well,
times
people
more
are
than
going to
that.
be okay. The people are going to be.
Let me respond to the rest of your question.
Sure.
What you're saying, I understand where you're coming from when you say it has been documented and there are confessions and so on. Let that speak for itself. But you don't see, your show is called Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Yep.
But the United Kingdom is censored and Europe is censored. And if you talk about these things, you will be put in jail in many countries. And I think that's where a lot of people start to say, well, if the truth is so clear and if there's such overwhelming evidence, why do you need to throw people in jail for disagreeing? And you yourself said, well, there is no debate. I think everything is debatable. I think
This is the just asking questions technique. Oh, yes. I 100% believe that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. But if it's so undeniable, then why do people have a problem with it being questioned? I'm just asking that question. Why do people have a problem? I mean, I believe it, but I don't understand why everyone else has a problem with it.
People have a propensity to believe things that are wildly untrue. Do we want to encourage that? Do we want to live in a society where people believe things that are wildly untrue?
No.
I mean, that's a tactic that I would use here, but Piers doesn't use that tactic. Piers is like jumps onto the free speech. He's won over by the free speech thing.
Mm-hmm.
thing at least should be debated. And if the evidence is very one-sided, let the evidence speak. Don't throw people in jail. So do you think that Holocaust denial laws should be overturned?
I don't particularly agree with Holocaust denial laws. I don't think people should be imprisoned.
Okay.
Well, because I have a blanket view now, which has evolved slightly actually over the years, that I have a blanket view that speech should not be criminalized, right? People should be allowed to say what they want to say, and they should be then made accountable for what they say. If you
See, and now they're on to free speech. They're not really talking about the ramifications of presenting someone with this idea that it's perfectly fine to believe because, this is a debate. It's perfectly fine to believe the earth is flat, right? That's not going to do any sort of damage to society. It's perfectly fine to believe Jews are controlling everything. That's not going to cause all sorts of bigotry and racism in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a completely different question.
Yeah.
You can present wild things for people to believe, and they will believe them. That could be completely detrimental to society. That's the question. That's the debate to be had here.
Yeah,
But look,
it is.
Nick is never asked to answer that question.
Well, that would be interesting. I mean, Nick doesn't believe in free speech. Well, he's flip-flops on it all the time, obviously. He believes in free speech when it
What if
assists him.
people believed all Christians were pedophiles?
Right.
Can we just debate that? Should we publicly debate that? Should we present a large group of people that believe all Christians are pedophiles? Is that a good world to live in, right?
Right. If there was some mass movement that started to gain, well, this is how it this is why it's difficult, because I am also reflexively on the side of free speech in most situations, where I say, yeah, well, people shouldn't
Look, I don't
be
think
illegal to have a different opinion or whatever. But the way it kind of works, because what you're saying, and this is where it gets difficult, is everything's fine if it doesn't have an outcome,
some sort of
or
cost. Yes,
yeah,
on
some
society.
sort of cost.
Yeah,
right, some sort of cost or some sort of it's not, and also if it's not popular. So like the thing like with flat earth doesn't really have a cost to it if people believe that. It's like, okay,
yeah, exactly.
people aren't
Yes.
going around yet doing terrorism because of flat earth. People aren't going around attacking other people because of flat earth. But if all of a sudden, over the next couple of years, somehow flat earth theory becomes like this terrorist organization.
Yeah, then all of a
people-
sudden we have to step in and we say,
Right.
look, no more
Right.
flat earth debate. It's
Well,
settled.
I mean, I would still say in America, I don't think you can, because it's just the First Amendment. You can say, listen, you have to draw a line of, you can say this crazy shit, you can believe this crazy shit, but you can't have actions. You can't act upon it. You can't do illegal things based on it. And the difficulty with that is, yes, then it makes it easier for people like Fuentes and all these other people to create a bunch of hate movement and hate groups. But I think that's the cost of free speech that we just have to deal with from a legal perspective. Now, from the private company's perspective, like YouTube and X and all these other things, I think they're well 100% in their right to say, okay, we don't believe that people who are just promoting racism and anti-Semitism and all this other shit should be on our private platforms.
Well, look, this is why they have the laws that they have in Germany, because in Germany, it actually happened.
Right.
They presented this idea that Jews were behind everything, and it took hold, and a lot of people believed it, and pretty soon they were gassing them.
Right.
And they said, look, we can't present this as an idea for people to accept. It's not true, and we're just going to cut it off. We're going to say, look, this is not something you can believe. This is a costly belief that we don't want in our society, right?
Yeah.
But Nick is coming along and saying, look, there are no costly beliefs. Well, maybe that's the debate to have. Are there costly beliefs? I believe there are.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Then look, if you did say, if a large number of people were believing that all Christians were pedophiles, he would understand, okay, that's a costly belief. We should probably do something about that.
Right.
That affects me.
Yeah. Well,
But
so
look, none of that conversation happens here, which is why I'm looking at a lot of people are saying Piers did a great job. And I was like, really? I mean, Piers came off as like a clueless liberal to me, which I do think a lot of people on the left are, oh man, he killed it. But I'm worried about this thing called preference falsification, where a lot of people really believe this stuff. They're just saying that they don't believe it because they know it's taboo, right? But as soon as there's some sort of tipping point, you realize, oh my God, 50% of the country is actually Nazis.
Right. Right. Well, again, it's kind of it's difficult because we don't know. It'd be interesting if there's some kind of way this could be looked at, but I don't know. Like the number of people that went into this conversation who hadn't made up their mind about Fuentes or any of this stuff, I have no clue which way that they would fall on it. I would think that most people, that if they hadn't already had an opinion about him one way or the other, or they didn't really know about him, and they actually sat down and watched this whole thing, that they'd come out with a negative opinion of him. I don't think they come away with a positive opinion of him.
Right.
So,
well, look, like I said in the very beginning, I'm very humble about these things.
sure. Well,
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I think if we went out and did man on the street interviews, it'd be impossible to get anyone to say. That's the whole point of
Right.
preference falsification. People are lying about their true preferences.
Yeah, it will be interesting, because Pierce asked him this question if he's interested in like running for political office, and he said no.
Yeah, that's total bullshit.
Right, which is obvious.
Total bullshit.
I don't believe that either. But so I think there's a real possibility, a really strong possibility that he'll, as soon as he hits 35, he'll immediately start running for president, or something like that. And he would have to run as a third party person. And it would be interesting to see, okay, how much support is he actually getting? And how much he's actually pulling away from the Republican Party. Because then you can really have some
it would be
open.
interesting if he didn't get much support. I'm not sure how interesting it would be if he gets a lot of support. Hey,
Well, if he does, we'll just listen. It's better if he gets a lot of support. At least we'll be out of the open and we can actually deal with the question openly, as opposed to sort of this guessing game of what's actually going on. I don't know if you saw, there was this report that came out on X that was laying out about how much of Nick Fuentes' support on X is all just bots.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, and people doing the swarms and other stuff. They're talking about how Nick, for some reason, more than any account on all of X, can post something and in 30 seconds will have more views and likes than any other account on all of X by like magnitudes of like 1,000, which is obviously not physically possible. And so it's very obvious too, anyone that ever, even for us, anyone that ever, interacts with Fuentes or anything online, you put his name in your title, you do anything, and there's going to be a bunch of people who, never really commented on your stuff before all of a sudden flooding in, right? So they obviously have entire operations, Discord groups or whatever. This is all these people do all day, is do this stuff to try to just boost the numbers.
Yeah, for all the reasons that I stated before. They don't have a girlfriend, a house, no aspirations to ever, no hope of ever having a house or a girlfriend, or they're just completely disembodied from society.
they're trying to create the idea, the false idea that, oh, look at, there's all these people that really support what he's saying. So you can support it too, right? It's trying to do this whole like appeal to the majority thing. You can be part of the movement. Look at all these people that are part of the movement. Which, if there really were all those people, you wouldn't have to bot the whole situation.
They're trying to force the preference falsification. They believe that there are a lot of people who, once they realize they have the numbers, and this is how preference falsification works, as soon as people realize they have the numbers,
right,
there's no reason to keep it a secret any longer.
Right.
Have an employer, they can make a view about whether you are the right kind of person they want for their employment, as they would make a decision about anything else you do in life. So I actually believe that speech should never be criminalized, is my personal view. I understand why in places like Germany, they have strong laws about it because they want to move on from what they believe was the most shameful moment in their history. I understand that. Do I want that in my country? No. Am I appalled by what has been going on with free speech in United Kingdom in the last...
See, I don't even think he has the right analysis on why they have the speech prohibitions in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think he has the right analysis on that.
Well, yeah, because once you go too far, that's when people start throwing out the laws and stuff.
Yeah.
And
totally.
Fortunately, it's never happened in America, so we haven't had to grapple with that. And hopefully we never will have to grapple with that question.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years? Absolutely. It is ridiculous that people have been frog marched to prison cells for stuff they put on social media, right? So, yeah, I do. I think what is more interesting to me about our exchange is I was not expecting you to go the opposite way. I was not expecting you to be so emphatic that at least 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. And there'll be people watching this who I think will be very surprised by that, because you have built a reputation for being, if not a Holocaust denier, then somebody constantly questioning in a downward way the number of Jews who were murdered. That doesn't appear to be what your position is now.
No, and here's what I would like to see for my entire career. When I started my show, it started with a good faith inquiry where I was questioning a lot of these narratives. And I said, what is the answer on the other side? But what I found is that the answer was criminalized. So when you would talk about anything regarding Jews, Israel, the Holocaust, you could be in favor of the official narrative on those things. If you went against, you were banned, censored, and in some countries jailed. And so I actually haven't made up my mind on that because that's not really a matter of interest to me. And there's a...
So see, we've already got to the whole... We started with him saying he thinks that 6 million Jews, 7 million Jews died in the Holocaust. And now he's evolved in the course of 5 minutes to, well, I haven't made up my mind on that. In 5 minutes.
Right, but he left himself wiggle room because it could be 20 billion.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. I haven't made up my mind because it could be more, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
but
no.
it's just, it's so dishonest. It's hyper dishonest.
A lot of analysis and scholarship on both sides of the issue. And I've read both sides of the issue. And honestly, unfortunately, it's hard to judge because there's never been a debate.
Did you hear that? I missed that the whole time. I missed that the first time I listened to it. You can hear Piers talking to his producer.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Listen.
On both sides of the issue. And I've read both sides of the issue. And honestly, unfortunately, it's hard to judge because there has never been.
Oh, yeah. Where's the
He's
clip?
like, where's the Hitler's cool clip? I agree with what you're saying with a lot of like the way in which the argumentation I get is not going to be persuasive to Groypers, but I do think it's important to be like, okay, here's Nick saying he's doing this bullshit, which we both agree is just nonsense about the Holocaust and all this other stuff. Oh, I'm not saying, I don't believe blah, blah, blah. And then you have to show, well, okay, well, here's a clip of you saying that Hitler is awesome. So like these are obviously contradictory opinions, and you do need to show these things back to back to back, because whenever you have this conversation with Nick, it's the same thing as like trying to have this conversation with Hassan. They're so dishonest that all they do is lie and deceive and try to weasel out of every position that they've ever had. If it's not good, it's not a good look in the forum that they're having. None of them actually will stand by anything.
I mean, he definitely stands by the Hitler stuff.
Well, that's true. That's true, actually. Yeah, those. Well, that's what's even weird to think too. Is like once. I guess I should amend what I was saying. He'll stand by it once. Well, it's weird because he's like in this position where, like, how far can he go without looking too cucked? Right. I think that's the calculation. How far can he go without being cucked?
Yeah, that's why I think the psychological reactants are strong in this one. Like he needs to
Right.
be studied because it's just
Yes.
off the charts. I just the I'm not the Groypers obviously are not going to be convinced by any of this stuff. Okay.
Right.
The problem is Steven Crowder's audience, right? Bunch of normie conservatives. I think they could be moved further right, more
They could
radicalized.
100%.
Yeah.
But it,
So, and
this
I
is
just the Piers is taking this from the left wing perspective. So he's basically destroying Nick Fuentes from a left wing perspective. I don't think he did any damage with the moderate right wing audience.
how do you destroy Nick from a right wing perspective?
Look? I bring up the idea of dangerous ideas in society, right? Don't try
That's
to.
not going to play at all with the right. I don't think.
Oh well, it's better than what he's done. I just I don't think this was a good showing for the thing that I am worried about. I am worried about normie conservatives moving further right.
Yeah. No. Which I think is definitely a real concern.
Yes.
The problem is so much of these conversations, they're not. It doesn't really matter what you say. It matters who says it. And this is why you do need someone like Steven Crowder to come out and say, fuck this shit. Being on the right doesn't mean that you're pro racism and pro sexism. That we spent the last 10 years. You should say we, Crowder, we people on the right spent the last years fighting back against the woke left, saying we're not racist and we're not sexist, and it's a lie for you to call us that. So now we can't just adopt the position and say, no, actually we're everything that you said. You were 100% right. We should have never actually been fighting back against the woke for the last 10 years. Every time we fought back against the woke for the last 10 years, we were actually lying, because in reality, we were everything they always said we were, right? That's really what the position is that I think Crowder needs to push back on in the conversation.
Crowder's not going to do it.
Well, that's the problem, is that he didn't, for whatever reason, either because he's a coward or because he agrees with all that shit. And then he doubles down, because not only does he not push back on that in his conversation, then he attacks really for no reason. He attacks Piers Morgan publicly for this conversation. And he attacks Piers Morgan and then lies about Nick's position, saying
What
Nick
was
is
the
against
attack?
identity politics.
Oh, okay. So Crowder just framed him as a left wing nut job.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, look,
It's-
I think there's a lot of left wing nut job stuff in here for them to frame him that way, and Piers did a bad job of avoiding
Right, but what
those
is
attacks.
what is the purpose of Crowder emphasizing that, if the goal was actually to try to gatekeep Fuentes out of the right?
That is not Crowder's goal, obviously.
Yeah, well, that's the
and
problem.
look, Crowder is not worried about the thing that I'm worried about.
Right.
Crowder doesn't give a fuck if the right wing is far right or moderate right, as long as Crowder is high up in that hierarchy. He doesn't give a fuck.
Right. Maybe.
He'd gladly march behind Nick Fuentes if that's where the winds blow.
Right.
And that's how a lot of the coalitions go, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is why they don't want to call him out. And look, Nick Fuentes wants the coalition to go further right. He wants it to go into the racist stuff. And look, there's a lot of people I don't think have a problem with that, which is just, I mean, that's the terrifying part, because it could be, we could be down that path. Yeah.
And again, it's a lot of people on the internet, right? They just make the woke left's point for the last 10 years when we see all this pushback against Candace, and you only see like 10% of that against Fuentes. Like, why are they not just like, yeah, we'll totally march behind Candace and all this other stuff?
Who's pushing back on Candace? Oh,
Crowder is. Crowder and Tim Pool are pushing back super hard on Candace.
Right, because they think
Ordering
it's
is
gonna,
pushing back super hard on Candace. A lot of people are.
they think it's gonna hurt them electorally.
Yeah, I mean, this is fucking the Fuentes shit is going to hurt them electorally if this becomes popular. If this ever leaves the internet, it's going to become very electoral. That was the entire debate, the actual part of the conversation that Crowder pushed back on Fuentes on. But like the last 50% of it was all about him criticizing Fuentes for attacking Trump and hurting Trump. And he
Right.
was attacking Trump with far greater actual on the ground way than Candace Owens was. In that conversation with Crowder, Fuentes said not only were they intentionally sending people, okay, even Candace hasn't done this to my knowledge, intentionally sending people to go harass conservatives specifically, okay, to go harass conservatives for not being white nationalist enough, not being racist enough. And then he wanted to start, when he thought the election, Fuentes said this, when they thought the election in 2024 was going to be close, they had a plan where they were going to go to Michigan and they were going to go knock on doors and try to get people to not vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah,
that were
Crowder
going to
wants
vote
to
for
keep
Donald
the
Trump.
coalition together. Okay, he doesn't care where it falls ideologically. He'll keep the coalition together if they're hardcore racists or if they are not hardcore racists. He's
Right.
just interested in the coalition. That's
Yeah,
the
no, obviously. But
commonality
my
there.
point in bringing that up is I'm just saying for the argument against Candace is this is damaging because she's attacking Transpoint USA.
Because she is tearing
Like,
the coalition apart.
right,
The
she's
same way
tearing the
that Nick
coalition
Fuentes
apart.
is tearing the coalition apart.
Exactly. And he's doing it.
But
and
it's
he was
not about
planning to
racism.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
But Nick, it is about racism. Nick is like, I will tear the coalition apart unless it's organized against these different minority groups.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool. So, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really fucking cool.
Do you regret saying that?
Saying a fact? No, that's absolutely true.
You think Hitler was very fucking cool?
Yes, I do.
This is where I think he's totally lost. Now, this should have been the beginning of the conversation, but this is where I think he loses any of the more normie people. Is when he's like, yes, Hitler is cool.
Yeah,
And
no.
based.
Yeah. This is like the only thing. This is the only win for Piers.
One of the
And I'm tired of pretending he's not.
Well,
to be honest.
This is the problem, you see. It's a bit like when you just say, I'm a racist. You're a racist who thinks Hitler's cool, but you're not anti-Semitic. If you're a Jewish
Yeah.
person watching this, what are they thinking? I'll tell you what they're thinking, because I've got a friend of mine called Danny Finkelstein, who, when he heard I was interviewing you, he's a Times journalist in the UK, very eminent journalist here, and author, who wrote a book about his own family's experiences at the hands of Hitler and Stalin, because you also told Tucker Carlson that you admire Stalin. But let's just take what Danny said here.
See, here's how much the material conditions matter, because this is effective if people's material conditions are met. They have sympathy for this guy. It's hard not to, obviously. But if you are in terrible, dire straits economically, this maneuver is not going to work at all.
You have to convince people that it matters.
Yeah.
That's the entire point. The entire point of religion is to convince people of these things, to convince people of moral questions. And here's a moral question, not to support the guy who's committing genocide is a moral question to say you should not blame a bunch of random people because of their group affiliation for all the problems in your life. That's the moral question. And this is, I think, the problem is that a lot of the internet right is very nihilistic, or they're just very cynical. They're very degenerate. There isn't really a strong moral, like no one wants
because
to,
of their material conditions.
right. But
Look, if you're doing great, you got a girlfriend, you got a good
No,
job,
no,
you're not a
hold on.
nihilist.
Let's look at the this is the problem, because what you're saying is true, but people are too afraid to stake a moral position and try to pull their audience in the direction. Even though I think that's what people want. Look at Jordan Peterson. I think this is part of Jordan Peterson's appeal, was he was making, especially in the beginning, he was making very strong moral claims and convincing people and trying to convince people of agreeing with his moral claims. This is what Nick Fuentes is doing. He's making very strong moral claims about Jews, about black people, about women, and he's trying to pull people into that position. There's too many people on the internet who they understand what you're saying and they see what you're saying because it's true, but because of that, they let themselves be cucked. They let themselves be paralyzed, where they say, well, I can't take a moral position. I can't take a moral stand and say, no, it is morally wrong for you to blame blacks and Jews for the problems in your life. Not only is it morally wrong, but it's also just fucking stupid, and it's not going to actually help you in any way whatsoever. So it's both morally wrong and also just pragmatically stupid.
Right.
And people need to do that. And that's what this is. And this is the problem. This is what people like Crowder, this is what all these people need to do. They actually need to stake a moral position on this and say, we can't allow the, like, you know how the right stole patriotism from the left over the last 50 years or so? Mm-hmm. They basically were like, okay, well, the left doesn't care about patriotism, only we do. The right can't let the left steal racism and sexism and say, well, no, actually, the only people that really literally do care about racism and sexism is the left, because us on the right, we literally don't care about those issues whatsoever. And we're totally fine aligning ourselves with those issues because it is an immoral failing to do that.
Yeah.
It's for me, it's completely dependent upon the person's material conditions to whether or not they're willing to take this hard moral stance.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm just saying it's the same thing with, this is the same way that CRT and the woke shit worked, is that they would go to poor black people who had not good material conditions and say, all your problems are white people's fault.
Yeah, that's why it caught on. That's why it took over society. I'm worried about the exact same thing happening.
Right. And people on the right were very willing to take a moral stance against that and say that's immoral and not true.
Hi Piers, it's Danny Finkelstein here. As you're interviewing Nick Fuentes, you might try suggesting to him that he reads my book, Hitler, Stalin, Mum and Dad. It's called Two Roads Home in the United States. Since he says he's on Team Hitler, you might like to ask him...
This is... I think this is such a mistake. Even the way this guy opens up, read my book, it's just so out of touch.
About the fact that Hitler arrested my mum, tried to starve my mum to death, did starve my grandmother to death, sent my great aunt to the gas chamber, my great uncle, my cousin. My grandmother on my father's side ended up being one out of 7 children, the only one that survived the war. So you might ask him whether he wouldn't rather be on Team Mum rather than Team Hitler. And as for celebrating Stalin's birthday, well, Stalin took my father, sent him to a state collective farm, sent my grandmother and to a state collective farm, sent my grandfather to the Gulag. You might try asking him why he doesn't celebrate Dad's birthday rather than Stalin's. It may all be a big joke to him, but he complains that he was 18 when someone tried to cancel him. Well, Stalin and Hitler arrested my mum and my dad when they were 10 years old. So perhaps he might like to reconsider his joke.
See, that's the reality of your jokes, although I haven't ascertained yet whether you are joking when you say that Hitler was very fucking cool. Are you joking, or do you actually think he was very fucking cool? The most genocidal monster of the last 150 years?
Yeah, the thing is, my generation, we're just done with the pearl clutching. You
might be, but then your generation hasn't gone through what Danny Finkelstein's family went through. So maybe the pearl clutching has a way to go for families whose family members
oh my gosh,
were murdered.
We got all that. We, me mom, like I don't even know who this person is. Why is this person talking to me? This old British guy is saying me mom got killed by Hitler.
Because he doesn't find it funny when you say Hitler's very fucking cool.
I don't care.
He finds
I don't care.
I know you don't care.
The thing about the pearl clutching needs to be addressed too, because it's not remotely true either. We just went through, and we talked about it a lot here. We just went through this huge conversation for months about how horrible it was that there were so many people that were either cheering on or making fun of the death of Charlie Kirk. And if you're going to say, well, we don't care about pearl clutching, well, that's a lie. Because what was that? What was all the people on the right who were saying, how dare you clutching their pearls? How dare you make fun of this person's death? How dare you advocate for this person's death? If the left just says, well, that's just pearl clutching. And I guess, you said that we're not doing pearl clutching anymore. So everything's on the table at this point, right? All political violence, all horrible things in the world are all on the table right now because we don't care about, quote, pearl clutching at this moment in time.
Right,
that's fine.
yeah.
You don't have to care, but he does care.
Does that guy care about America? Does that guy care about me and my country and my family? No.
He cares what you, a prominent
problem.
conservative in America, has to say about Adolf Hitler. Now, what do you mean by Hitler is very fucking cool? Because I think he's very fucking a monster.
Okay. And that's a clip. I think he's very fucking a monster. Do you hear yourself?
Yeah,
I mean,
do.
can we all grow up?
I do.
Can we all grow
He
up?
murdered
That
12
is just
million
childish.
people. He murdered 12 million
Okay.
people. What is very fucking cool about that? Tell me.
The edits, it's just cool. The uniforms, the parades, it's cool as a guy. You look at World War II and it's fascinating and it's interesting and it's compelling and it's cool. And, we're just tired of saying these kinds of things. We want to talk like real people and give our honest opinions. And then we literally get an old Jewish guy from England who's going to say, oh, that's not very funny, mate. Me mom. And it's like, shut up. Like, no one is in favor of genocide. So let's just get that out of the way. We're not in favor of a Holocaust or genocide.
Do you think if half your family
had been,
you think if half your family had been wiped out by very fucking cool Hitler, you'd still think he was very fucking cool? Or would you think that actually he was a despicable monster who murdered 12 million people, who targeted people because they were disabled or Jewish or Romani Gypsy or whatever it may be, and that he systematically destroyed people, incinerated them in gas chambers? Do you think that you would find it very fucking cool if your family had been through that? Or do you think you would find it very fucking disgusting? And perhaps moderate the number of times you laugh about it, or want to joke about it, or want to abuse someone like Danny Finkelstein, who's written incredibly powerful books about what happened to his extended family at the hands of the Nazis and your other hero, Stalin. See, my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is that in parts of this interview, you try to come across as moderate, but every now and again, the mask slips. And it slipped again here with what you say about Hitler. There's nothing very fucking cool about Hitler. We know that from history now. We know what he did. You've already conceded that he murdered at least 6 million Jews. So when you say he's very fucking cool, Jewish people watch this and go, this guy's disgusting. Why would he say this about someone who perpetrated such an evil? And what's the real answer? Why do you? Is it just for clicks? Is it for money? Is it just for fun? For shits and giggles? What is it? What motivates you to say something like Hitler was very fucking cool?
It's for this. It's for all of this. And the lack of self-awareness is amazing. You're a boomer. You're a 60-year-old boomer. And we've spent maybe 3 minutes on you saying, he's a really fucking monster. He incinerated people. And I'm sitting here saying it's not that serious. It's not that deep. And
not that
and what
serious.
I'm getting at.
Not that serious.
Do you want to say more about he's a monster?
You're not a kid yourself anymore. You're not a teenager.
I know.
Right? You're nearly 30, to be clear.
Yeah,
okay? You're a fully formed adult who has a brain, right? And at some stage...
It's easy, I guess it's easy to convince people of what they want to believe. And so, yes.
You don't have to convince them. What are you talking about?
because you get into this whole thing, like it's just so obvious. And it's like, okay, I love all the Jews. Hitler was amazing. Oh, well, Hitler was a horrible monster. Why do you say all this stuff? Oh, it's just you're a boomer. You don't understand it. I'm just doing it for this, right? Because I've always seen people be like, oh, listen, Nick doesn't actually think Hitler was cool. He's just, it's all a performance piece. He is the Andy Kaufman of our generation. He's all just doing it to elicit these reactions from people. And it's like, how fucking stupid are you? How stupid do you have to be on a level to convince yourself that is true? That the person who spends inordinate amounts of time talking about this, by the way, it's not in who it doesn't even make like that argument doesn't even make sense, because if that was the argument, like Andy Kaufman's like the good comparison. And Andy Kaufman was trying to do some sort of thing where he's trying to get everyone to hate him, like when he was wrestling women or saying some crazy shit. He would go out to the most public space possible and he would say the thing that would get everyone triggered. Nick does the exact opposite. He'll be in his safe space. He'll say the incendiary thing. Then he'll go to the public space. He'll go on the podcast circuit and he'll say, oh, actually, I'm a super moderate. And then only once you have someone like Piers confront him with what he actually said, then suddenly it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I do have to stand by the fact that, Hitler was cool.
Yeah. We're in a situation where that is actually going to be tested, whether this argument is appealing to people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hope it's not, but I don't know.
We'll see.
Is taking you off these rabbit
Is this an
warrens.
interview or is this a lecture? Can I respond to what you're saying?
I want you to explain why you think it's fine to say how fucking cool Hitler is and to dismiss the very powerful 90 seconds from a British journalist who lost a lot of family members to the Nazis in such a callous, dismissive manner.
I don't think it's powerful. I think we've been hearing that our entire lives. Okay. The Schindler's List. Let's just be honest. The propaganda is over the top. We have been brought in America.
What about the Schindler's List?
Tell me about the Schindler's List.
Well, tell me about the Schindler's List.
I'll tell you about it. We have been browbeaten as a people, as Americans, as Westerners for our entire lives. And do you know what this has done? It has taken away any sense of pride, any sense of love for our own civilization. We have been made the villain in our own story. We have been made because, well, let's just be clear. It doesn't begin and end with Hitler is a monster. This has been the political narrative, which is why we have thrown open the borders. This is a political narrative, which is why we can't be a conservative society as a whole anymore, why we can't be proud of Europeans, why we can't be proud of being Christian, because they've told us if you're too white and too proud and too Christian, it's going to lead to a Holocaust. And so my generation, our entire lives,
wait, Nick,
it's true. And that's why
the irony about what Fuentes is saying here is that he's saying that, oh, well, the left basically, they demonize Hitler because, they attack this concept of patriotism and, Europe being white and America being white, because if they didn't do that, they were afraid it would lead to Hitler 2.0, another Holocaust, and, blah, 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 all this stuff. Right. And then Nick does the very thing that those people were worried about, by saying Hitler was based, by saying most black people should be put in jail, by saying Jewish people need to be removed from positions of power. He's playing into the very stereotype that he's criticizing. He's doing he's making the fear true. He's validating every single thing the far left has said about the right for the last 10 years. And that's the great irony. And that's the great stupidity of this entire movement and why it's ultimately doomed to fail and just weaken the right as a whole.
People like me. That's why I'm popular, because this is bullshit.
Shit. Honestly.
Yeah, it's a crock. We don't want to hear any more about me mom and me dad. That's a crock of shit.
No, listen. What you just said is a crock of shit. And
it's true. It's called the open society.
The last moral consensus rested on defeating the Nazis in World War II and making Hitler the villain of the world, really, society as a whole. Definitely in the West. He's tearing at that fabric.
Well, it's interesting because I would have I would think the last great moral consensus in America was defeating the USSR, but that for some reason, maybe it's just because like all the sympathetic commies in Hollywood, it didn't really cement itself into a hatred of communism the way the hatred of the Nazis cemented itself into hatred of fascism and white nationalism.
Right.
Your gut, you know it is. You weaponize
No,
this stuff.
you know.
You weaponize this stuff for money, but you know when you say something
please.
like what you
I'm
just said.
banned from banking.
You
I'm
know
banned
it-
from banking and credit cards. You know who you're talking to? I
Yeah,
do it for money.
and by the
How
way-
much money you
and by
make?
the
Your
way,
company's
that
worth
shouldn't-
$100 million. Your company's worth $100 million. I was banned from Bank of America.
And you shouldn't
I'm
have
banned from
been.
processing credit cards.
And you shouldn't have been.
But I am. So don't tell me I'm doing it for money.
Well, ask me my opinion about that. I'll tell you you shouldn't have been. Right? I don't agree with that. What happened to
Then
you?
don't say I'm doing it for money, because you know that full well, and you say it's a
How
grift.
much money- how much
if I
money
wanted to
are
be
you-
a grifter, I'd be like you, and I would
money
go
are-
and say,
how much money are you making?
I'm making a lot of money now.
Yeah.
Now that I'm the #1 live streamer in America, because people agree with me more than they agree with you. We're tired of hearing about slavery and the Holocaust and Jim Crow. We're done hearing about that. You guys
Yeah, I'm not
overplayed your
done
hand.
hearing about that.
Okay, well, your generation's on the way out, and Generation Z is coming up, and we're finished with that. We're ready
Well,
to take our country
you know,
back.
I've got three
we're
sons.
not listening
I've
to
got
crime
three
minorities
sons.
anymore.
I've got 3 sons, and they don't share your views about
Yeah, well.
slavery and about the Holocaust. They can have decency and compassion and humanity about some of the worst things that have happened in the last 150 years or more.
Sound like girls.
They can do that, and they can also have concerned views about issues like immigration and other issues. The two things are not mutually incompatible. You can have different views about different things. It's your lack of humanity and compassion for people about things like the Holocaust, about slavery. It's that people find so contemptible. And I don't understand why you need to do that. Is it, again, I just ask you, is your motivation financial? Is your motivation for fun? What is the motivation to saying these outlandish things, which you don't need to say, and which I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect a lot of it is performative. So what is the motivation?
Anyway, I don't know, because I know you said earlier, like there's the money question, and it's true that he's been debanked, but I mean, he even said himself he's making a lot of money now. So obviously, it's completely within his financial interest to keep pushing on this. And he's gaining lots of notoriety and lots of power in his circle doing this.
Yeah. I think there is a bit of a 2 movies thing going on here, because I do think a lot of people watched this and this is what they've been waiting for. Finally, someone's going to take down Nick Fuentes, and they saw this as like a giant win. I did not walk away with that kind of optimism. So,
Right.
and look, I want, obviously, I don't want society to fall apart. But I think a lot of people desire that because of where we're at, because of the situation. Yeah, so it is a big ask to tell people to take tough moral stands and empathize and care about people who had this tragedy happen to them 70 years ago, when you're having trouble paying the rent, when you can't find a decent relationship, right? When you don't really have face-to-face friendships with people. All your friends are online. Their names to you, you don't even know their real name. You've never talked to them. I mean, you might have talked to them over the internet, but you've never really sat down and had a meal with them. That's a weird situation to be in.
That's the issue. And this is, we talk a lot about incentives, and it should be very clear that the incentives for Fuentes is to keep people in his audience miserable. Because if there are people in Fuentes' audience and they are, they do work out, they do get in shape, and they do find a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and they do have a happy relationship, and they are doing better in life, they do find a good job, none of those people are going to want to be in Nick's community anymore. They're not going to want to be Groypers.
And so but so much of that is the political environment we're in. I don't know.
Sure. But so you have a situation where you have a person who is saying, listen to me, I'm going to be the voice of your concerns and bring you positive change. And yet all his incentives are lined up so that he never does bring you positive change. It's exactly the same thing, we talked about for years, with sort of like it's literally the exact same of there's all those organizations that are, the racial grievance organizations. There's all those, the black organizations where all they do is they raise money through donations to attack all the racist things in American society. And you go, okay, well, they have this like weird perverse incentive where they don't actually want racism to go away because they make money on the fact that they can attack all these racist things. And it's the exact same thing with Fuentes. His incentives are actually aligned in such a way that he needs to make sure that things are actually shitty for his own audience, and his own audience is miserable.
If you followed Jordan Peterson and you gave it the real Jordan Peterson try, right? You cleaned your room, you cleaned yourself up, you tried, and the economic situation, the reality of the situation was you failed because of outside forces. You're going to turn to Nick Fuentes. Jordan Peterson failed you. You tried that. It fucking didn't work. You're looking for reasons why that wasn't your fault. Why you can try and fail constantly. But it's not you. It's not your fault. And Nick Fuentes has those answers for you, right?
Well, Nick Fuentes or Hassan Piker has those
answers. Yeah, excellent point. Excellent point. There's someone on the left or the right.
Like that person, the hypothetical person you're talking about is a teeny tiny minority of people in Hassan or Nick Fuentes' audience. This is not audience made of people who gave it the Jordan Peterson try, like sincerely. Like they might have been Jordan Peterson fans. They didn't sincerely give it some sort of Jordan Peterson try, and then the random chance of life just screwed them over. So they're like, well, I guess I'm going to be racist now. I guess I'm going to be communist now.
Look,
that's not the types of people we're talking about here. That's some teeny tiny minority of people here. Because
I'm not talking about the random chance of life. I'm talking about the brute force economic conditions that we're living in today.
Or whatever. That's fine. It's irrelevant to what I'm saying, but it's the same point. Yeah. Is that those are not the same people. Those are not the people in this. Because when you're doing that, when you're healthy and you're working and you're working on yourself, you're going to feel better. Even if you're failing, you still feel better when you're moving in a direction, even if you keep failing. You feel better about doing these things. There's a time in my life where I was completely rudderless and aimless, and every day was fucking horrible. And when I was working, even when I was working on, writing a book that I never got sold, totally failed at that. But I felt so much better doing that process of actually saying, okay, well, I'm working on something. I'm trying to make something, even if it fails. And then when that failed, we started to go and do YouTube videos and working on those and spending all my time working on that. And I felt so much more better, so much more aligned with, okay, I'm actually doing something. I'm progressing. I'm creating something. I'm moving forward. And it took me forever. The amount of work I put into the YouTube videos when I first started doing them was astronomical. It was astronomical, and it took so long for anything to ever get any views. And yet it still felt so much fucking better than sitting around and feeling sorry for myself or working. Even, I was working at the time, but working, and then I'd get home and I just, do nothing and just be sorry for myself. It felt so much better. And so that's why I'm saying I don't think that these people are people that were doing what I was doing, that were working on themselves.
Were you facing economic precarity through any of that?
Jordan, yes.
Okay.
And I don't think that these were the Jordan Peterson people who are like, okay, I'm working really hard on myself. Okay, I'm not saying that people can't give into despair. They 100% can. And I'm completely sympathetic to that. But I'm just saying, I think that's a minority of people that are getting sucked up into the Hassan Piker situation or the Nick Fuentes situation.
I'm looking at the people who are facing economic precarity, which is like a whole different type of challenge than, like, obviously finding meaning in life is important, but if you're having trouble surviving, that's like a completely different situation. You can't even focus on the having meaningful goals.
Okay,
Are you still there?
I think we're just talking past each other, so I'm not sure.
Well, look, I don't know how many of the people in his audience are facing economic precarity. That
The
is
people in his
fucking
audience
important metric.
They literally can't be, because if they were like, oh my God, I'm 5 minutes out from being on the street, those people don't have time to listen to fucking hours and hours of Nick Fuentes content, to hang out in Groyper Discord. Those people are working jobs to survive. They don't have time for this bullshit. This is the overproduction of elites. Okay. This is people that don't really know what to do with their lives, but still have the ability and time to sit around and listen to hours and hours and hours of internet content. So I don't.
So you think
believe.
you think all these people have a good job? They're making 20.
No, I don't think they have a good job.
Okay, so they have a job.
I think they have their
hate.
parents' mother. I think they have their parents' money, or they're young people who are in college or in some situation where they're able to coast, and that they're rudderless and they're aimless. And a lot of people are living at home with their parents. That's what I think is going on. And by the way, that's not good. That's fucking horrible. And that's why I was such a big Jordan Peterson fan from the beginning, was that he was advocating for something to help those people get out of those situations.
What's that stat they always throw out on the left about how 80% of Americans couldn't handle a $400 emergency? You know that stat?
Yes.
That's like a pretty scary stat.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's 80%. I can't remember the stat off the top of my head, but if that is true, I would say a lot of the people who are in that situation are watching Nick Fuentes because of that precarity, that economic precarity that they live in all the time.
Okay.
They're asking themselves, why do I live in this economic precarity? Why is it impossible for me to get ahead? Look, when I was in my 20s, I mean, I didn't live in economic precarity. I mean, I could get a job whenever I wanted to. I spent my time working as little as possible and smoking weed and surfing, right? Apartments were plentiful and cheap. I don't know that that's the situation now. So I empathize with people who are like, I mean, I look at, obviously I have family and whatnot that are younger, and I look at their situation and I think, wow, man, it was so much easier when I was younger. And I think that's a huge factor. I think that's a giant factor.
Well, regardless, because I mean, neither of us know the 100% answer on this. Is, and I assume you agree, is that what Nick is advocating for is not going to help any of those people at all in any fashion. And that he's a parasite who's stealing those people's money and time and energy in something that could be used to try to improve their lives, and instead is going towards this dead end movement that's just going to lead them to being miserable.
Yeah, look, I 1,000% agree with you. I think as a society, we need to address the very real economic challenges that people are having.
Well,
and
no, I mean,
when we don't, this is what happens. People turn to communism and fascism. That's what happens.
Sure. I agree with that. Of course.
Yeah. So when I think the thing that bothers me most about this interview is that Piers Morgan he never really comes at it from that perspective. He really comes at it from the perspective of some clueless, out of touch elite who has never had any sort of economic precarity in his whole fucking life. And he wants to come and wag his finger and shake his finger at these people who are struggling and say, you shouldn't do that. You should feel bad for these other people. And it completely misses the problem. It completely misses the problem at hand. I mean, I see this as kind of a terrifying thing. I really do, because the people who have the power to change the situation for the better for these people economically are not going to do it. We're going to LARP our way into some sort of catastrophe. We're going to finger wag our way into fascism.
I hope not. I'm a little more optimistic
Look,
for once, but
yeah.
but
I'm not. I'm
you're a lot
not
more
optimistic
pessimistic
about this
it than I am.
Look,
Yeah.
for one thing, this whole exercise is presenting this as a option for people. Fascism.
Right.
Before, when everyone on the left was calling all of the right fascists, none of the conservatives were presenting fascism as a viable alternative. Well, now we are. Now we are. Look, we should have the debate. This should be an open debate for society. Should we look, it's just a free speech issue. We should maybe fascism is a good idea. What do you think, Sitch? Let's debate it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a public debate about it. Well, we're having that debate. And look, I think a lot of people who are facing economic precarity are going to be like, I didn't realize fascism was an option. Maybe this will be good for us.
Mm-hmm.
People been browbeating me and beating me down economically and spiritually and culturally for decades now. Maybe it's time for me to embrace this alternative that I didn't realize was an option until now.
Mm-hmm.
We are presenting that option to people.
Yeah, I agree. It's really fucked up.
Yeah, look, and I just the people coming out and going, "Oh yeah, Piers Morgan killed it." I'm thinking, what? Did he? Okay. Well, let's see. Let's see what happens.
Yeah,
it'll be very
we'll
interesting when Nick Fuentes finds a seat in Congress and runs and actually gets elected. Be super interesting.
Yeah, it would have been nice, and I agree with you. Well, I think the issue is like Pierce always comes off as kind of like an elite. That is just who he is. It's part of being British, but it's also who he is, because he is that guy, and he's always been that guy. And I agree, it would have been a lot better if he was able to frame things in a way of addressing the issues that young people are facing in the world at the moment, to at least try to either rob, to some extent, Nick from that power, that energy from him, or to at least show that he understands the problem.
Until somebody does that, we are fucking dead in the water.
Right. But that wasn't really his outlook in the conversation.
No.
His outlook in the conversation was just, I want to expose this guy for being a racist.
Well,
sexist,
congratulations. The coastal elites completely agree with you. Okay. When you did it, Piers. Good job.
Well, we might have to come to this fight where it's really going to be this. The right is going to have to deal with this. Here's the problem.
They're not going to deal with it.
No, here's the problem. There's only two ways that this, I think, is going to be dealt with. Either A, the right is going to have to deal with it, and they won't ever deal with it unless it's just become so electorally toxic that they feel like they have to deal with it.
If it becomes electorally toxic, it may be an electoral bonanza, Sitch.
I was going to say, if it is electoral, that's what I'm saying. If it's electorally toxic, they will deal with it, and maybe they'll have to come to that. If it's not electorally toxic, then it's just, unfortunately, then we will have the Tim Pool Civil War. I mean, we'll just have actual violence, and it will have to be solved through violence. Because I don't think there's any other solution if it goes this trajectory you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh God.
That'll be fun.
I just think. Oh man.
I don't think it's, to be clear, I don't think it's going to come to that. I still think that these ideas are. This is why I bring up the botting thing. If these ideas were just so just so fucking siren call popular to half the country, that you could get half the country on board with this shit, he wouldn't have to bot. He would not have to bot constantly. He would not have to have Discord servers full of people that do all this brigading bullshit.
Right.
The reason he has to do that stuff is because it's not It's not popular. It's very popular. It's the same thing with like Candace Owens. Like Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes can be popular in these very small ponds, but not in the larger population as a whole.
Right. Yeah.
So, and now if he does, that's when I'll be more pessimistic about this and more worried is that, yeah, if he runs for office or does become something that's like into the mainstream and is successful, then I'm like, oh, okay. I guess now we're fucked at that point. I'll be very pessimistic about the whole process.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm still optimistic.
It's just we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We will.
All right, let's read some super chats. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh my God, for $2 says we are all Nick Fuentes. There you go. You got a little Captain My Captain going on. Panda Tree for $10 says, I think Fuentes is the Hassan archetype, a lolcow that people within their political side see as a golden goose, especially in the online space, not realizing who they are trying to enter into bed with. I think that was true at first. We're definitely beyond that point. There is a willful ignorance. Like if Crowder or some of these other people will try to pretend like it's just a willful ignorance at this point. I don't even think it can be a real. I think all these people are either lying. They're lying very, very obviously to the world, or they're lying to themselves with such a negligence that they should be treated exactly the same. So,
well, it's invisible to them. They just don't see it. So it's lying to themselves.
The Rooster for $5 says, add on the harsh truth pills that the most lower middle class, working class young men in America, the world have Nick Fuentes' view on multiple subjects. I don't think that's remotely true at all. That's the.
How do you know
that's
that?
Though? That's because then why again? If this is the useful fiction, this is the useful fiction that he has to push. We're the secret majority. Everyone in the country believes what we believe. Okay, if that's true, why does he have to do all the bots? Why does he have to have brigades?
First of all, online,
it would all be natural.
Online is a completely different situation. You could have people who are not online, who are just working and have these views, who are not invested in the Nick, or maybe they even watch Nick Fuentes, but they're not going to bot.
I don't know, when the majority, this is what the Nick Fuentes crowd always points to. They always say, when you ask people how they feel about like racism or in-group, out-group preferences on their own race, who is it that's always scoring the lowest in terms of being racist? White people.
You understand the term preference falsification, right? I've said it
all
many
those
times.
people are just lying.
Yes, they're
Okay,
lying
well,
because it's socially unacceptable for
right,
them to tell the truth. So
here's-
therefore they lie. That's the whole point of preference falsification.
So
Do you understand the term, correct?
I understand the concept of that.
Okay.
So then if the data is all showing us that these people are saying they're not racist, and then the argument is, well, they're all lying, maybe, but we would actually have to have something that would show that to be true.
Yes. Yeah. Which
Well,
I am constantly looking for. Yeah, but look,
we don't have that.
You preference falsification is a concept for a reason, because this obviously happens.
What was the woke left correct? That all the people on the right were just secretly racist this whole time?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, maybe they were. I hope not. I didn't think they were right.
Yeah, I didn't either. But look, I was only going on. I wasn't really going on any data. So
right. Maybe. I don't know.
Look, the Wooster may be correct. I have no idea. So this is where I'm like, my humility. I don't know the situation. That's one of the things that's so uncomfortable about this situation, is because we're completely going into uncharted territory here. All of the reactions around this Nick Fuentes stuff, I mean, it's playing out really in a way that I would have not anticipated if we postulated this happening like a year ago. Which just makes me think, okay, well, maybe the economic situation is far worse than I anticipated. Maybe people are like, maybe preference falsification is a lot more present than I would have anticipated.
Squeeze Louise for 9 months says Pierce argues like a woman. Quote, who are you? Why are you so upset? Who hurt you? Well, first of all, it's funny because the one person who said, why are you so angry or upset was Nick in that conversation. There's like this weird, like, I understand what you're saying, like the vibes thing. There's like this weird thing that happens where someone like Nick can just go off on the whole, do all the same things, that you're talking about. But as long as it's in service of like pushing a taboo, because that's really, I think, what it is that we're triggered to. Because Nick does all the same things, 100%. Saying, oh, pearl clutching, you people are degenerate, you people are horrible, all these things, blah 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 blah. These people all hurt and all despicable. He says all the same things, right? But as long as he's doing it in the service of pushing a taboo that goes against a cultural norm, then it's seen as edgy and rebellious as opposed to like womanly and safe. And I think that's really the key alternative that triggers that sort of feeling that people get. AKA Batos, thanks so much for 10 gifted.
Yeah.
memberships.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Righteous Indifference for $5 says it's telling Nick pronounces the word Christians as Christians. That's funny.
Did he really? I didn't notice that.
I missed that. Yeah. The Blue Psycho for 279 Canadian says Piers Morgan doesn't understand per capita.
We did.
So
we didn't even play that
part,
part of
yeah,
the debate, but
it's getting to be 2 hours. But
well, I do want to know what your take is on that because I thought he fucking was horrible.
Yeah, I don't think it was good. I agree with that. I don't think it was a good argument. I think he does understand what's like the concept of per capita. He was just trying to not actually address it in the conversation.
Yeah, he was
because
dodging.
He knew it would look bad. He was just dodging. Yeah.
Yeah. He looked
Right.
horrible. It was terrible. It was his worst part of the debate, and it was early on. I was thinking,
right.
ooh.
Well, he shouldn't have let Nick weasel out of the thing he should have focused in on was he plays the clip of Nick saying most black people should be put in jail. And then Nick, because again, Nick lies constantly, says, oh, well, I meant like people that commit crimes. You say, okay, well, wait a minute. Most black people don't commit crimes. So what are you talking about? And he really should have just kept focusing on that contradiction and be like, well, why did you say this in your stream? But now here publicly you say something different.
As soon as he brought up the school shooters, I was like, no, don't.
Yeah. Right.
Stop.
It sounded like an argument that someone before the stream had like in the writing room, they had like, I have this great argument, but it wasn't really a good argument.
Yeah. Well, just in this argument, do you really want to make the argument that white people are the violent ones?
Well, that wasn't really what he was trying to say. I mean, maybe could perceive it through that lens, but
I mean, that's if he's saying most the school shooters are white people, what is the argument?
The argument he was trying to say was, if you're going to say that most of the people doing crimes are black people, so you should avoid them, how can you not say the same thing about school shooters? Why are you saying that people shouldn't avoid going to schools with white people because there's a higher chance that they're going to get shot by a mass shooter? That was the argument he was trying to make.
Right.
Brian for $20 says you can't use terms with Nick Fuentes. He will play games with the definition of the word to say it doesn't fit the category. He's using the CRT playbook where words basically mean whatever benefits him. I agree with the last part of what you're saying, that yes, Nick uses all the tactics of the woke left, where he will use all the definition games 100% at any point in time to try to dodge around them. I don't think the solution is to just abandon the terms because people are such word thinkers. I don't think you can abandon the terms. I'm not sure that's the correct solution to this. Is to say, well, we can't call him racist because he will dance around the term forever. It's like, well, okay, but he is racist. The Blue Psycho for 7 Canadian says the entire Candace Owens situation is completely blackpilling.
Oh
Well, both
yeah.
Candace Owens and this is very black. I mean, it is very depressing. It is very blackpilling. This is the situation we're at now, especially with the internet right is just so. This is why gatekeeping is so important. If you have no gatekeeping, and I understand the right was very gun shy about gatekeeping because of going through 10 years of the woke left. So the woke left definitely created this environment that we're all in. But everyone has personal responsibility for their own actions. And the right lost the ability to gatekeep in response to you have the Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes is just kind of trying to make everything so extreme and retarded and insane and destructive. I still don't understand how people are not criticizing Candace Owens and calling for her to be kicked off YouTube for doxing people. That used to be the unforgivable sin of YouTube, was to dox people.
Yeah, I
And she's
saw
just
people
doing it
joking
openly.
about it on Twitter, and I was just
Yeah.
thinking, they don't know how this is gonna just ruin these people's lives.
Yeah. She's just openly doxing these people, calling on her audience to dox more people. I don't know. It is very blackpilling. Everyone just kind of shrugs about the whole thing. Metalworks for $5 says world jewelry sounds like a poorly named supervillain's plan to steal the world jewels. I can see this as a Venture Brothers episode. Yeah, it would be. That would be the villain who's like, what? He's not anti-Semitic. He just chose that word, by mistake for his supervillain name, and now he can never change it because that's how everyone knows him. Ace Mori for $10 says the culture war will last much longer than people think. We won't talk about the same issues, but every will be a hot button issue, further polarizing our society, aka the forever culture war.
I don't believe that.
Well, I mean, isn't that the way it's always been? There's always a hot button issue that everyone fixates on. At least like when, I don't know, maybe it's just the way history is taught, but like I know, my history classes and they talk about every time period. There's always some issue that kind of polarizes the country. That's the hot issue of the decade.
Like prohibition?
Yeah, prohibition was one of them.
Yeah, but then something changes and we move on.
Right. Unions was a big thing, prohibition, World War One, Depression, World War Two. There's always, fighting communism, civil rights, fighting the USSR. There's always some issue that kind of like arises. So I guess I'm not sure that right now is like different in a broader context from that. And that's a different issue. But like as a system, I'm not sure it's different. The culture war, I think, is ingrained in humanity and will never actually end.
I think we go through long periods of consensus. I do think we do. I think after World War II was one of those long periods of consensus. I mean, that's why you had the Democrats control Congress for 40 years. I mean, that's a long consensus.
That's a good point. And there was a broad consensus after World War II, but there also was a lot of fighting over civil rights in the 1950s, in the early 1950s.
I would say that it came more into play in the 60s and 70s.
It came to
the 50s were kind of the broad consensus period.
Well, because remember, like Brown versus Board of Education, so I got rid of separate but equal was in 1954.
Okay.
And then the Montgomery bus boycott with Rosa Parks was the next year, 1955. Then the Little Rock Nine was 1957. So I think in the 60s was when, like, it took 10 years for like the anti-segregation side to win in the 60s, I guess. And also it took a younger generation. And maybe this is to your point about the broader consensus was that I think a lot of people were against segregation, but they might not have been against it so strongly that they were willing to rock the boat, maybe.
Put their necks out on it, yeah.
Yeah, put their necks out. And then it was, and then 10 years later, when you have the younger generation is more willing to do that because they're younger. You get that change. Ace for another $10 says the culture war should be a cold war, but this one's become hot so fast and worse, and a whole generation will never experience a time where it felt like this country was united. Well, that last part is definitely true. Definitely, a lot of people have never felt like the country was united. That is definitely true.
I
It's not
have, but
quite
it's
hot
because
yet.
I'm like older than any. I'm
Right.
Gen X, so I've definitely lived through periods where I felt we were united.
The only time in my lifetime as a millennial I felt like the country was united was right after 9/11.
Yeah.
There was like a 1 year period where everyone was united, and then it was not. I think part of it too is just, and it is important because it is the feeling. And I was very tapped into politics because my parents were when I was younger. During like after there was like that 1 year period after 9/11, but then after that, the whole George W. Bush thing, there was no one, the country was not united against George W. Bush. So the hatred and the tribalism left, right for George W. Bush was super high. It continued to be super high under Obama. So, re-examination show for $10 says, I've run into so-called Christians who are ethnostatists. They speak and double talk all the time. Romans chapter 11 warns not to be high-minded against the Jews or to be cut off and sent to hell. Yeah, it is disturbing. It is disturbing the amount of doublespeak. It is fascinating. Just the sort of blatant disregard for the truth that you see come out of this. I've never seen anything like it, not even from the woke side of things.
Well, they would argue that it's a necessity because of the social cost.
Mm-hmm.
So
that is the argument.
they
Yeah,
would say
that is the
take the
argument.
social cost off, and we'll be honest.
I remember. If I could find it, Jesus. That was like a public conversation I had with academic agent like 2 or 3 years ago. Was him saying like he was saying that I'm privileged because I don't have to hide my power level like he does.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of funny. Swamp Faye for $2 says, I'm a mountain Jew. Hope he hates me too. Probably. Yeah. Listen, he doesn't hate you. He loves you. He just thinks it's funny when people like you get killed and doesn't trust you. The Rooster for $2 says, Fuentes is now mainstream and that should terrify us. Well, if he is, then that would terrify us. He's definitely a lot more mainstream than he's ever been. And that is scary. That is scary. I'm not fully black-pilled on the whole situation just yet.
I mean, I'm like 2/3 black.
Yeah, you're close. You're close. I don't begrudge you. I don't begrudge you or anyone for being close because it is very disturbing.
This was a real eye opener of an interview. So
right.
And I see the two movies playing out. I see half the people are like, oh yeah, Piers destroyed him. And the other half are like, Piers is such a boomer. He did great. Oh my God, when's he running for president?
Right.
And I don't know what those numbers are, but I would like to know.
Yeah. The Blue Psycho for Sound Canadian says, this is literally all about immigration. How many girls must suffer before Piers finally drops his awful immigration views? In that conversation, Piers said that he thinks that they totally fucked up with immigration in America. I don't know if he says it about England. He just says in America. The thing I think me and you, Adam, we had this kind of interesting back and forth offline about the problem with politicians hyperfixating on immigration, which we both think is a definitely a huge problem in this country. It's hard, I think, for people to like once you start deporting people en masse, which Trump is doing, and you close the borders, which Trump did. It's still like it's not like you're gonna wake up and then you're gonna open your window and you're gonna see like the world is a better place because we deported the illegals. Like it's something that is not super visible, I think, for people to see. Like people feel more so the homelessness in the city, the poverty in the city, the crime in the city, the high cost of living wherever they live. And immigration definitely affects all those things. But I don't know, even if you snapped your fingers and all the illegal immigrants disappeared in one day, it's not like those issues are going to just be solved.
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking about it in the context of, I think, the midterm election, whether or not people would feel that was a tangible improvement in their lives.
Right.
Yeah.
Nick Costanza for 2 hours says, hot take, Nazis bad and Nazi sympathizers bad too. Yeah. Actually,
Yes.
just were, hey, Sean for $5 says Pierce missed. The Nick said at least 6 million, but could be 100 times that amount. Pierce thought he won, but Nick did a denialism trick right there. And then he did do that. It was funny that, I mean, you pointed out to Adam in terms of like him questioning the numbers. I don't know, like, I don't think the average person would have caught sort of the, it's so when he says he's questioning the numbers, he could also mean that's higher thing. I don't think most people would interpret it that way. So
Yeah, I just thought Piers looked like a fool in that portion because he kept coming back and punctuating him admitting that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. So he's kind of laundering his reputation a little bit, unaware that he was doing it. And I just thought, oh my God, this.
The idea of that was because he's trying to point out the contradictions. Now, maybe that doesn't work, maybe it doesn't matter, but that was the thought process for the interview. Because I didn't play the clip, but right in the beginning of the interview, he brings up the whole Coleman Hughes, and even plays the clip, the Coleman Hughes, the two different Nicks. So I think that was kind of the focus and why he kept punctuating that.
Well, he was
knows.
like bragging about it. Like, look, Piers Morgan, got you to change your position on this. So it's a big win for me. And I was just thinking, you're a fucking idiot.
Our headset in the chat says, no, Sitch. He literally said, quote, it could be 100 times that amount. And neither of you caught it.
Yeah, well, I mean.
What do you mean? And I guess I'm not understanding what you're saying then.
Are you saying that specific line is what they say? That's like the code phrase that they use to one another?
Oh, because it's just so like an impossible. Well, I think like because it's an impossible number or something. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, it would be 6 billion,
obviously.
right?
Would it be?
If it's 100 times 6
it would
billion.
Be 6 billion.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that would be everyone.
Right. Yeah, he was clearly just trolling. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Piers, the not to look like a clueless idiot would be to say, I don't believe you. I think you're just saying this.
Right.
Like to press him, right?
Right.
But no, to say, oh, this is a big one. We're learning so much about you. Yeah, you are learning a lot about me, you fucking idiot.
Right.
Yeah, you've learned a lot about me, you moron. You should invite me on your show more so you can learn even more. I'll be a regular guest on your show, Piers. Look, I'm so amicable to your ideas, Piers. Bring me on all the time.
I wonder too, I think there's a third group of people. I do think most of the Nick Fuentes fans who come in the chat and they just lie. It's just very obvious. I do think that there are some of them that are kind of like their only social relationships that they have currently are like Groyper internet social relationships. So even if they don't buy into all of the racism and sexism and all this other stuff, like they have to convince themselves with all of their heart and soul that it's like a troll or it's being edgy or whatever, because they don't want to lose the social relationships that they have.
Oh, I was reading the chat, so
it's okay. Brian for $20 says, I wonder if you framed his quote, everything is debatable as dumb and as anti-white mentality. It would be a good way to pigeonhole him when he obfuscates from a point, makes him look stupid. Basically, you got to make fun of him. Yeah, I mean, that's the real, like in these situations, that's like the real way. I feel like if you want to be persuasive to, people in his camp or whatever, you have to demasculate him and make him look lame and pathetic and weak. It's not really a question of like, you have to play dirty, which is kind of shitty. That it's kind of the situation that, how you persuade people. But
it's true. Look, the dirty pool game is not really fun. I don't
Right.
enjoy it. Like I'm interested in what's true. So I don't, and I'm not on some sort of crusade to convince people I'm correct.
Van Gogh says, Sitch says the smartest thing he said all stream, and Adam misses it.
What did Sitch say?
I said that I
Oh,
think there's
now-
a third group of people in the Groypers who all their only positive social relationships are internet Groyper relationships. So they have to basically convince themselves that it's just being edgy or trolling or all this other stuff that it's not true because they don't want to lose those relationships.
Right. Yeah. No. So
part.
much of it is really about a social friend group.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said Fuentes has the weird incentive of making sure to keep people. It's kind of like a cult leader. They're incentivized to keep people away from the rest of society and isolated so that they only get their social support from the cults. You know, Scientology does that and all cults do that.
Right. Now look at you guys. We had a math fail on the stream. Now everyone's pointing it out. We couldn't just let it go. We couldn't let it slip away. Now they're super chatting like crazy. I'm going to do bad math more often because we get a bunch of super chats every time it comes up.
Oh, the 6 million is 600 million, not 6 billion. There you go. We were off by 1-0.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
We're only off by a factor of 100.
Listen, it's not that much. Okay, it's not that much. So, yeah, right. Different for Jar says you both suck at math. 6 million times 100 equals 600 million, not 6 billion. Thank you. Sees Pappy for $5 says, note to Adam, covering Nick does not bring in more girls to chat. Let's try call her daddy or talk to David Puff about his true crime story. That's true. You're trying to bring in more girls for the guys in the audience. This isn't it. This is it. Right.
Yeah. Someone was talking about how many women were in their audience. I think it was Don Lemon. Don Lemon said 60% of his audience was women. And I was like, what? I think 5% of our audience is women.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the ladies love Don Lemon. They just want to hear about how, those Republicans are bad.
Is it because he's gay? They're like,
probably. He's safe.
I like him. Yeah, right. We're only off by 5 billion, guys. It's not that big a deal. Bob Van Gogh for $5 says immigration is the biggest issue for the right and coalition building to get substantial results is taking precedent over gatekeeping. That is true. That's definitely true. Labu Psycho for some Canadians says the left doesn't actually care about racism. They just want to Charlie Kirk every single opponent while importing millions who keep assaulting women. There's a lot of people like that. There's definitely a lot of people like that. But listen, you're just pearl clutching, according to Nick Fuentes. So who cares? We can't have conversations about anything being moral because otherwise you're just pearl clutching. Ace for $5 says James Davison Hunter, the man who popularized the term culture war, would call Fuentes an anti-citizen, one willing to destroy his society for power. Oh, interesting. That's definitely what's
I think
going
that's
on
a
there.
lot of people, though, which is super unfortunate.
Right. 100%. 100%.
Power is enticing.
Yep. Sleazy Weeds for $5 says showing Nick Fuentes of all people a clip of a dude named Finkelstein trying to show his book is certainly a choice.
Yeah, that was. I don't know how. I don't think Piers had anyone really smart vetting these kinds of arguments that he was making. So
there's a massive generational discrepancy going on there.
Yeah.
I do agree with that. Ace for another $10 says props. Progs got Sweeney to apologize, but did nothing to stop the racist harassment that led to a young cosplayer's self-caused tragic passing. The culture war has made the world worse. True. Completely true. Cyan Blade for $2 says validates leftists. No, Nick Fuentes exposes moderates. I guess I don't know what you mean by that, because if the entire project of leftists for 10 years has been to say the right is all composed of people who are secret racists, who are all secret Nazis. And then Nick's argument is, and maybe your argument is, yes, they're correct. We all are secret racist Nazis. Then yes, you are validating the leftist worldview. You're validating everything they did for the last 10 years.
Well, they both agree on that project.
Right.
I think the racist people on the right want them to have the number. They want themselves to have the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So they tacitly agree with the leftists.
Right. Sunai for $5 says Fuentes is a hypocrite. He gets pissy about the reaction of Charlie Kirk, yet on X gleefully hoped Jackson Hinkle would get airstriked in Yemen. Well, obviously he's a hypocrite. Yeah, obviously he got all pissy about the reaction of Charlie Kirk, and then anything else is just pearl clutching when he doesn't like it. Righteous Indifference for $2 says, can we convince Candace that Fuentes is a female to male transition? There you go. So the reverse Macron. I bet you, God, whoever's trolling Candace right now with all the shit that they're sending her about Charlie Kirk, that's got to be the next thing to do. You got to troll on that. Is that Nick was really a woman? Try to get the trans investigators there.
People really liked our take on the Candace stuff on the Sunday show. It just clicked for them. Seeing Candace as a jilted ex-lover really makes everything click into place.
Yes, it does. It does. The Oceanist for $10 says, I've been in and out of college for the past couple of years. Now I'm about to graduate next year in a career field I'm enthusiastic about. People need to find a purpose, and sometimes it takes time. It's very true.
Well, that's good to hear.
That's very true.
We should poll our audience to see how many of them are feeling economically precarious.
Right. The Blue Psycho for 7 Canadian says, liberal policies the past 40 years sidelined white men while mass importing people who keep assaulting women. This mess is on your worldview. So it's so weird. And if you're going to get into the whole like statistics and per capita thing, majority of women are assaulted by people that, look like them, are around them, share their ethnicity and all these other things. It's like this weird, I guess you're just pearl clutching when you kind of talk about this stuff. When you kind of hyper fixate on the times that this occurs. You can have a conversation, I think a real conversation about, we need to have borders for a lot of reasons. Some of it's crime. A lot of it is to protect workers. A lot of it's to protect your culture that exists in your country without kind of doing the stupid, like, you just want to import brown people to rape white women shit. Because you understand, like, as soon as you say that, you've just turned off half the country from having a conversation with you. And they're just going to say, oh, like, this is a problem. You say, oh, well, it's the policies, 40 years of policies that like prevented, the left that stopped that. It's like, we understand your argumentation, your way of phrasing it that way is what gave the liberals and the left the power to shut you the fuck up, is because you're phrasing it in such a stupid and racist way, as opposed to a real way. But you're free to keep kind of just plodding down that pathway and not really caring if what you're saying is, going to bring a positive outcome in your life.
Even if you phrased it in a socially acceptable way, though, they would make the same charge. I mean, it's been
not
like
a question
that forever.
It's not a question of phrasing. It's a question of what is the issue. It's not even true.
Well, if you said any level of immigration was an issue, they would frame you as a racist.
Okay. You understand that? Okay, I don't know why.
I agree.
I don't know why you keep doing
I agree
this.
with you. I agree.
I don't know.
You.
I just there's always
that
going
phrasing
to be,
it in the most incendiary way possible is not a winning strategy.
I understand that,
right?
but it's this. No. This always comes up in this conversation. You always kind of loop to this, and I have no clue why you're doing it, because all you do is you just give rhetorical power to the side you don't even agree with. So I have no clue why you keep doing this. There's always going to be a bunch of far left socialist scumbags who will say anything you do is racist and sexist. They will always do that. I'm never, ever, ever talking about those people in terms of being persuasive, because those people are not persuadable. So just expel that from your mind. I'm never talking about those people. We're talking about the people who actually can
Are
change their vote
persuadable.
and
Yeah.
can vote and be persuaded on policy. And those people choose to align themselves with the left on the immigration issues because people like the super chatter are so fucking stupid and not persuasive in how they talk about this, that all they have to do is frame it as a hyper racist thing.
Well, look, but that made me think, what is the way that you can say it that is persuasive to those moderates that you can get? And I was struggling to think of a way to say it that wouldn't be categorized as racist, and I couldn't think of one. I was literally in a debate where I was talking about this when we were having these conversations about it, and at no level of conversation do you not get accused of racism.
By those people, yeah.
Right, yes, yeah.
But not by moderates. The moderate position, there's a reason that people keep playing that clip from 1990 where like all the Democrats were like, yeah, we need to stop, too much immigration to protect workers in the 90s.
Right.
So obviously that was the issue. People could have the conversation without being called racist.
Right. Something changed.
Yeah, a lot of the woke shit changed. A lot of the woke shit changed. It made it impossible to talk about the issue. And the way to solve that is not to say, oh, well, let's all just be racist now. Because then it's like, well, then you just prove them right. And they're just going to double down. It's also what's so kind of stupid. Like a lot of people pointing this out, and this is what's important to remember, is they're like, wow, Donald Trump wins his second election, and wokeness is in decline. It's not dead, but it's definitely in decline from where it was. America's really seems like a lot of America's over woke shit. Now wokeness is going to try to hang on. It's not over. You got to double tap the zombie. You got to root it out. But then to just say, oh, well, now we're going to have like the right-wing civil war with Candace and Fuentes. Now we're going to lean super hard into the racism and sexism to prove the woke right. All it's doing is just giving the left more power. If this Fuentes shit becomes if this Fuentes stuff becomes more and more mainstream, all it's going to do is say, oh, look, the 10 years of woke shit was 100% correct. That's all it's going to do. That's why I keep saying it's going to lose. It's just going to prove them correct. And the Grobers are going to lose because of that. Most people in America are not fucking racist. They don't agree with this shit.
Yeah, if there's a blue wave in the midterms, I think some people might wake up. So we'll see what happens.
Board for $5 says, I disagree with Adam. I think most of his fan base generally view Nick as a funny edgelord. I also think people view politics as a community label. I
hope you're right. I definitely hope you are correct, and I am just being paranoid.
Lad and Telletranta for $10 says, keep in mind that Nick also brought opposition out. I never commented or super chatted before until he started getting mainstream. I am his target audience, 26 white male Christian, and I hate him.
Okay, well
that's
good.
True. It's a good point. Sala for $2 says, check your DMs and play that Prince clip on stream. Okay, I'll play. You keep sending me. I haven't seen this Prince clip. You keep sending me this Prince clip, so I'll play.
Are we going to get copyright claimed on it?
No, it's not. He's not singing or anything.
Oh.
It's Prince about the internet. Okay. I mean, it's true. There's always a war. It's always an information war. There's always this just kind of propaganda information war. And the internet has allowed so much information to be like vomited at people for more than they've ever felt in their entire lives. There was the exact same problem on a much smaller scale, but still, that happened like when the printing press first became big, was like every fucking person and their mother was like printing a newspaper. It was just like rampant disinformation and misinformation everywhere.
We're going through it again.
Yep. Swamp Fae for $2 says, as a half-breed, my experience is that everyone is racist. There you go. Everyone's racist. Saul for $5 says, have you seen the clip where Nick denounces racial hatred? He argues it's okay to fear black people, but cringe to hate them. I don't buy that. You shouldn't buy that because obviously it's part of the op. It's part of the subterfuge. Brian for $20 says, Adam, got to remember the internet is worldwide. He is hijacking the anti-Israel sentiment and any talking point to make him seem mainstream, but he is not. He's not America First or MAGA. He hates America as it stands.
Yeah. Something to focus on.
Yeah. Well, that's a true thing too, that since it's worldwide, you can always get, if you can grab everyone of one interest, it'll be a lot of people, or at least it'll seem like a lot of people, because most people are so diffused. So,
right. And there's hundreds of countries that hate Jewish people. They're all the Islamic countries, right?
yeah. And there's hundreds of countries that would pay someone like Nick to weaken America
Because they hate America.
because they hate us. They hate us because they ain't us. Sella for $10 says, I know someone who heard Holocaust survivor speak at his college and claimed 400 million or some crazy number like that died. It caused him to question the 6 million number. Really? I've never heard that in my life. That sounds retarded. Who would ever claim something like that?
400 million. Huh. Wow.
How many people died in like World War II, like total? Like it was like, wasn't it like 80 million or something? I don't know where the 400 million would come from. Let's see. Says the AI is telling me 70 to 85 million deaths. Okay. I don't know if that includes, I'm assuming that includes Holocaust and all that shit, but maybe it doesn't. Ace for another $10 says, you guys are boomers. Young people are insane, either far left or far right. No room for compromise. They're only becoming more unhinged. P.S. This is regular Ace on a different account. Well, I figured that out now, but thank you. Maybe. We'll see. I'm still holding out hope. That we won't have to get into some sort of physical conflict about the whole situation.
I agree with Ace. I think they are unhinged.
David for 7 Canadian says, Paffy is referring to my former friend and colleague, Mark Twitchell, murdering a man. I testified at the trial. I did a stream with Kidda about it. What? Wait a minute. What was Paffy? Now I've lost. What was Paffy talking about? Oh, this is your true crime story that he's talking about. Oh, okay. That's crazy. You had a friend and
He
colleague that
wants us to
murdered
cover
someone.
that so that we can get more girls in the chat. So,
Right. I gotcha. Yeah.
so
Okay, that's
Pappy doesn't
interesting.
have to become a groiper.
That's crazy.
I think we should do it. Did you
The
skip
blue-
over the chat making fun of our math? Come on, you
I
got.
already read that one.
Oh, you did? Oh,
Yeah, I read it at the time. The Blue Psycho for 14 Canadian. Thank you.
says
Ace.
message redact.
Message
What?
retracted. I don't know what I said. Ace Mori for $5 says, still going to bother you guys to react to the Olivia Sun video about how the cops intervening in domestic violence is fascist. Oh, yes. I did mean to watch that. There was a whole video.
One battle after another. Have you started watching that?
I haven't watched it yet. No.
Oh, okay. We're
There was
reviewing
also-
that on Thursday, guys. If you guys want to see it on the media channel, many of you have requested
Yes.
that we watch that movie and react to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think mostly contrast. When I say many,
Well, I was curious to watch it too because I forget that guy's YouTube channel. It's like Man After Man or Man Eats Man or something, who
Mhm.
made that video that was like defending Hassan in the whole dog collar gate, where he kept like, he defended him by making it seem like he did a video where it's like him talking to himself, but like as if it's two different people. And he's like, did you hear Hassan shocked his dog? And then the guy's like, that's terrible. He's like, did you hear Hassan didn't shock his dog? Then did you hear Hassan totally shocked? Like he made it like he did the thing where he's defending him by making it seem like no one can get to the truth. So you might as well just like shrug and put your hands up in there. And he did a whole video just attacking Ben Shapiro and right-wing people for criticizing that movie from a anti-woke perspective.
well, I can understand why right-wing people don't like it. Definitely.
Yeah. The Oceanist for $2 says Jackson Hinkle, more like Jackson Stinkle. Got him.
Mm-hmm.
Ace for $5 says the word The world, I assume you meant word. The word fascist is so meaningless to me. I won't even call Nick one. I would just call him an agent of totalitarianism. Fascism has lost a lot of its power. Yes. It's not man carrying thing. It's a guy, he's got, oh no, it is man carrying thing. You're right. Thank you. It's man carrying thing. Yes, that guy. Look at you. Fate of Morality for 10 months says Piers shaming Nick for being celibate while also telling Nick that he's Catholic was kind of hilarious. Catholics believe in celibacy before marriage. That is true.
Yeah,
I see
I
people
thought
point
it
that
was
out.
like,
That is true.
that was weird too.
Yeah.
You just need to go out and commit adultery. Everything will be fine.
Nick did say in that conversation he'd be depressed if the Pope denounced him, which is kind of funny because obviously the Pope is not going to support Nick Fuentes.
Right.
So it's kind of interesting when there's that whole conversation about like world Jewry and all that shit. Because this whole thing about like, oh, you can't trust the Jews, they're going to subvert society because they all have some sort of like allegiance to something outside of the country. That was the entire argument against the Catholics in the early 1900s, all the way up to JFK. That's part of why the KKK was super anti-Catholic. They would actually go after not just black people, they go after Catholics too, because they made the exact same argument. The Catholics are coming to our country and they're all subservient to Rome and they're going to subvert our country for, some weird Roman plot and blah, 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 blah. And a lot of people were like, you can't vote for JFK because he's going to listen to the Pope. He's not going to listen to the American people and, all this other shit. So it's kind of interesting to see Nick use all those same arguments just to aim them at the Jews and ignore that. I mean, he's Catholic and he was, people of his faith also fell prey to those exact same arguments.
Sad. He should wake up to that.
Well, he doesn't care because he'll just say, well, it was wrong when it was the Catholics, but it's right against the Jews.
God, I hate that response.
Patter of Heads for 17 months says Prince saved me and my friends when we were driving through DC home from Atlanta, 3 a.m. during the 2014 shutdown. Showed us the 24-hour gas station.
Prince? You ran into Prince? Wow. Celebrity sighting. Those are always fun.
There you go. And he saved them. He said, here's the gas station, guys. And he said, thank you, Prince. That sounds like something out of like a movie.
Yeah, look.
The Oceanist for $5 says, have you guys seen Nick's body cam footage? He really leaned on being Mexican to the cops when they asked him about his views. I did see that. Yeah,
I have, yeah.
Yeah, of course. It's not surprising. Nick is hyper duplicitous.
He's like, I'm just an innocent Latino trying to get home.
Yeah, of course. I'm just an innocent baby angel. Nathan Gordon for £5 says Nick is the end result of the left crying wolf for decades now. We have a genuine racist who has plausible deniability because of the left. That is very true.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sadly, very true.
That's correct.
Blue Psycho for 14 Canadian says, to clarify, I don't support Nick because they think Jews are white people. I don't support Nick because they think Jews are white people. That's why a bunch of them converted to Islam. I still like you guys, even though I'm fundamentally in Sargon's camp. Okay. Well, thank you for giving super chats. Not sure I understand. I know you have to like squeeze everything into the super chat. I'm not sure I understand without punctuation. Are you saying you don't support Nick because Nick believes Jews are white and that bothers you? I can't tell if that's what you're trying to say. But thanks for your support.
You could just do a normal chat. You don't have to super chat.
Right.
Spell it out. We'll read it.
Ace for another $5 says, who has bigger sweater bunnies, AOC or Afton Ben? I don't know who Afton Ben is.
Yeah, you're gonna have to tell us because I don't know the competition.
Afton Ben, so I'm saying her name right, is a House rep for Tennessee. I've never even seen this lady before. Well,
Check it out.
Well, I don't know. I was gonna say AOC, but then I saw a couple pictures. I'm gonna still say AOC. I think AOC still got her beat.
In the sweater bunny
information
in the sweater bunny department.
Yes.
That's a funny term.
Dr. Liv for $3 says Nick Fuentes is a funny guy. You get your wish and you get white nationalism. Here's how it's going to go. Nick Fuentes, sorry, buddy. White application denied. You and your catboy lover are going to the mines. That is the irony about this. Is it? I feel like that happens a lot, though. That these people that really push this shit, they don't like cleanly fit into the category themselves either. Seems like a very common thing that happens. So. Dr. Liv for $2 says closeted gay man hates women. Heard this one before. Get better material. True. Not beating the allegations. Serial Friction for $2 says the term of jewelry is all over academic work. I've read it multiple times in Benny Morrison's Righteous Victim, which is the mainstream historical account of Zionist history. It's an academic term. Yeah, it seems kind of like when we have the conversation with Dialogue Always or someone about like whiteness. And you go, when I hear like people on the left talk about how like whiteness is bad and needs to be eradicated, and I'm like, that sounds super fucking racist against white people. It seems like you want to just get rid of white people. And then they say, no, 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 no. It's an academic term. And I'm like, okay, I understand that there's some academic term that some people use in some context, right? But when you bring it to the broader stream of things, it's a very different meaning. I think everyone knows what's going on here. People say whiteness. It's the same thing when people talk about jewelry. They know what's going on.
Look, if there was a branch of academia that talked about how whiteness was good, right, and it was all white people, it'd be a completely different context, right?
Right. It's only in the Sure. I guess.
So, but he's saying there is a context where people talk about it as a good thing.
I see what you're saying.
Which I obviously I think Barry Weiss, if she's giving some speech talking about the state of worldwide jewelry, she's probably thinking of it in a good context, right?
I think this could be fair. One of those situations where I forget who it was super chatted said getting bogged down in this sort of definitions game is pointless because and I know, and Cerebral Friction knows, and everyone listening knows that when Nick Fuentes talks about world jewelry, we all understand what he's doing.
Yeah, his context is not the academic.
We all understand the context of what he's saying. He's trying to say that that all the Jews have some sort of divided allegiance. They're all part of some sort of cabal that has a divided allegiance, and therefore they will subvert the goals of America and of Europe and all this other stuff. That's what he's saying. Now, I'm assuming I've never read Benny Morrison's book. Cerebral Fiction for $2 says an excellent book, by the way, highly recommended. I've never read Benny Morris's book, Righteous Victim, but I'm assuming that he's not saying it in that context. But I could be wrong. Godjoke for $10 says, could you guys link a video that has all the long clips of Nick Fuentes saying his unhinged shit? Need to show normies evil, this piece of shit. I have a coworker that likes him. Don't know if it is ignorance or actual agreement. I think actually I still have the little compilation I made on our channel, though it is unlisted, that I will link if I still have it.
Yeah, it's there.
What? Oh, here we go. Copy link address. Okay, I'll throw this into the chat here. There you go. Boom. Cerebral Friction for $2 says, my social support system is 100% in real life. I have lifelong best friends who I got into watching Nick and a female best friend who hates Nick. I don't have close relationships with online gropers. I'm not lying. I love you too, bro. Well, you could be the exception, Cerebral Friction. There's always going to be the exception. Don't make me throw out the average quotes, okay? When you say, well, the average person is this, and then the response is, well, I don't do that. It's like, okay, well, you know what average means, right? Dr. Diller for $2 says, if you ever think the Groypers are annoying in chat, just remember that Dev has a crazy hater who has challenged him to debate, started a debate stream, and then cried about Dev not knowing about it until after.
Wow. What?
Yeah. Well, for all the hate that Dev gets, I think a lot of his reaction is in reaction to all of this stuff, is seeing a lot of the right fall prey to the Canisones and Nick Fuentes and how depressing it is and how blackpilling it is. So That does make sense.
You got to be measured in your response, though.
True.
Can't be too unhinged.
Adam Refriended for 35 months says S-Class stinks and A-Team reigns supreme. Thank you, Adam Refriended.
Look at that. Brigadier General. I love that guy.
Hennessy CG for 44 months says, I'm like the peak Nick demographic. Fuck that dude. And Hassan too. My shitty life is from my choices. I only see them getting bigger, sadly, preying on the weak. Yeah, it's true. Ace for $5 says, let's all agree anyone who defends Hassan's Collargate controversy deserves to go straight to hell. Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Don't shock your dog.
No. Yeah, they were making fun of that at the Scream Awards and everything too.
I know.
But,
They all know it happened.
Yeah.
They're laughing about it.
You have the duping
Poor
delights.
dog.
Yep. It's not. I don't think it's not a coincidence. You see his dog in the background a lot less frequently than before.
Yeah, because it's a reminder.
Yeah. Well, he had to take the shot collar off. The dog is free. Okay.
Good. It was a success, and it was a successful campaign.
That's true. That's true.
We got freedom for Kaya.
Anyways.
All right. This was a fun stream.
Depressing stream.
This was a very fun and interesting stream.
Yes.
Lots of conflict. Let us know in the comments below what you thought, what your perspective is. Tell us if actually just leave encouraging stuff. Tell us that we're wrong, that everything's going to be fine. That's what I want to hear.
Everything's going to tell you. Tell us everything's going to be fine. This is going to burn out, and we're going to all move forward together and a happy future, right?
Yeah. And on Thursday, we're talking about one battle after another on the media channel. Sitch has yet to watch it. I've watched about half of it, and it's interesting. It's definitely interesting.
Interesting.
I judge movies by a lot by the ending, though. So it's difficult for me to say if it's good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely keeping my interest, though. All right. Take care, everyone.
Lethal Strain for $5 says, big difference between the average terminally online and the average normie.
Oh, yeah. Huge difference, though. True. But I think, obviously, the amount of economic precarity makes a huge difference in the average normie's life.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Have
fun, everyone.
Later.